Welcome, everyone. Today, we dive into a brand new story full of excitement and surprises. Sit back, relax, and let the adventure begin. In the opening of the story, we can see a guy sitting in a wheelchair. Heaven is jealous of heroic genius. The great have great hardship to contend with. Business legend, but because of his disability, end up depressed. Trick of fate. He was married to a talented and beautiful girl. But because of her ignorance, she has been killed and died with a remaining grievance. After being reborn, when the two meet again, what kind of sparks will they collide with? Female lead. Name: Ruan Haning. Gender: female. Height: 165 cm. Age: 20 years old. Tough and independent. Fierce and protective. Male lead. Name: Huo Chen. Sex: male. Height: 186 cm. Age: 28 years old. Deep-minded. A wife protector. The commanding voice of an old man echoed through the room. Ruan Haning, I'm telling you, you're getting married whether you like it or not. Do you hear me? The female lead felt a strange sensation, her heart heavy with foreboding. She muttered under her breath, so, this is really happening. The cursing voice of her father could still be heard, his words dripping with disdain. As expected of someone raised in the slums, she has no proper upbringing at all. Ruan Haning, where do you think you're going? Ignoring him, Haning ran and stared at her reflection in the mirror, her thoughts swirling. This is the 20-year-old me. She realized with a jolt. I've been reborn. Just then, a girl's soft voice pierced through her thoughts. Daddy, don't be too upset, the voice pleaded. It was Ruan Haning, her younger sister, who had always been the favored child. Sister has just woken up, so she may still be harboring some resentment, Haning said soothingly. But Haning's irritation flared at her sister's words. She could barely contain herself as she responded, her voice laced with sarcasm. Proper upbringing, how could I possibly have that? Everyone knows Ruan Haning, grew up without a father, don't they? Her voice grew cold as she continued, her eyes hardening. Isn't that right, dearest father? While my mother was pregnant with me, that man was off having an affair. The loving mother, Cheng, died from childbirth complications after the mistress had the audacity to knock on our front door just before I was born. After driving his wife to her death, he turned around and married that woman. 3 months later, they had you, Ruan Haning. And me. I was thrown to my grandmother, left to grow up collecting rubbish just to survive. Her father's face twisted with anger as he lashed out, you were clearly never taught any manners. Is this how you speak to your father? Haning's eyes blazed as she suddenly grabbed his hand, her voice unwavering. Growing up in the slums, I fought more times than Ruan Haning ever had to call you, Daddy. Before her father could respond, her stepmother stepped in, trying to play the mediator. Haning, this is your father. You need to listen to him. He's arranged a marriage for you with the young master of the Huo group. You have nothing to lose by marrying him. Without a moment's hesitation, Haning slapped her stepmother, causing the woman to fall to the ground. Ruan Haning, what have you done? Her father shouted in outrage. We're offering you such a good opportunity, and you don't even know how to be grateful. Haning's lips curled into a smirk as she responded with biting words. If the Huo family is really as wonderful as you claim, why don't you marry off Ruan Haning instead? You try to act like an elder in front of me. I have no proper upbringing, so when I'm backed into a corner, I strike back. She knew all too well why they were so desperate to marry her off. Young Master Huo, the fiancé originally intended for Ruan Haning, had met with a car accident 6 months ago, leaving him paraplegic. His status within the Huo group had plummeted, and now, they were left with almost nothing. But her father and stepmother couldn't bear to sacrifice their precious daughter, so they turned to Haning instead. In her previous life, she had refused to be a substitute, marrying a rich kid out of spite. But that decision led to betrayal, her husband's affair, and ultimately, the tragic deaths of both her and her grandmother. This time, Haning was determined to take a different path. She didn't care what kind of person this young Master Huo was. All she wanted was to protect the people she loved and live life to the fullest. Sister, how can you behave this way? Ruan Weisi's voice trembled with feigned innocence. Mom and Dad are your elders. You shouldn't have raised your hand against them. Hangsing's irritation only deepened as she snapped back. Ruan Weisi, shut up. You and your mother are two peas in a pod, both up to no good. Her father, furious and frustrated, shouted, what kind of family do you think will marry you? Don't be ignorant. You'll never achieve the status the Huo family holds. You'll be married within the next 2 days, do you hear me? But Hangsing remained calm, her voice dripping with contempt as she made her demand. If you really want me to marry, that's fine. But here's my condition. A house on West Street and $1 million. Any less, and the deal is off. Her father muttered under his breath, clearly unwilling to part with a penny. You insolent brat. But her stepmother quickly intervened, her tone sugary sweet. We'll give it to you, Hangsing. How could we not provide a dowry when our daughter is getting married? Zemming, if Hangsing wants it, let's give it to her. Hangsing knew the truth. A house on West Street wasn't worth much, and $1 million was like pocket change to them, worth about as much as buying a couple of bags. But to protect Weisi's reputation, they were willing to pay that much. Then it's settled, Hangsing said coldly. Now get lost before Granny comes back. It'll upset her to face you indecent beings. As if on cue, the door opened, revealing her grandmother standing there. Granny, Hangsing cried, her voice tinged with relief. Granny, Ruan Zemming has agreed to give us a house and some money. We won't have to struggle anymore. But her grandmother's expression darkened as she scolded, nonsense. What's good about taking his money? What have you agreed to? Before Hangsing could respond, her father interrupted. Young Master Huo is not only talented, he's also wealthy. Life will be easy when you're rich. Hangsing will be better off there. But Hangsing was done with his nonsense. Stop with your bullshit, she snapped. I've already agreed to your deal. I'll get married as soon as you give me what you promised. A few days later, at the Huo residence, Ruan Haning finally went to meet Huo Chen. As she arrived, a man opened the door and escorted her to his room. It's been a while since young Master Huo has come out of his room, Ms. Ruan, the man informed her. If you'd like. But she cut him off, opening the door herself. Mr. Huo, if you have no objections, I'll be letting myself in. Inside, she found Huo Chen sitting in a wheelchair, his expression gloomy. Unfazed, Haning approached him with confidence. Mr. Huo, nice to meet you. I think we need to get to know each other better. Get out, he ordered, his voice cold. But she didn't hesitate, moving closer to him. Mr. Huo, we're family now. We need to at least get to know each other a little. With that, she opened the window, letting in a breeze as she reintroduced herself. Let me introduce myself again. I'm your wife, Ruan Haning. In an angry tone, he replied, I don't need a wife. She leaned in and spoke calmly, thanks to the power of the Huo group, we were able to register our marriage without your presence. From a legal perspective, we are now a married couple. He responded curtly, if you're here for the money, what's in here should be enough. If you're not here for the money, the amount in here should be more than sufficient to support you for the rest of your life. He pulled out his credit card. She took the card and said, is this for me to use freely? I was just going to borrow some money from you, Mr. Huo, but I'll use this card instead. Let's split the profits 50-50. What do you think? Annoyed, he muttered, whatever. Just stay out of trouble and try not to bother me. She replied confidently, don't worry, you won't regret investing in me, Mr. Huo. At that moment, a man rushed in and announced urgently, Mr. The third young master had a fight at school. The other party has barged into the house and is downstairs demanding an explanation. He frowned and thought, the Nuo family's children are notorious, but after the pillar of the family became disabled, the whole family has been struggling. If I let this situation go unchecked, the Huo family's reputation could suffer, which would impact me as well. Asterisk. She grabbed a baseball bat and said, since we're all family now, I'll handle this on your behalf. He muttered, one family, huh? They all went downstairs. In the hall, a fierce argument was taking place. Wu, why are you acting out of line? So what if I said your brother is disabled? That's a fact. Just apologize and I'll forgive you. No one cares about you anyway, so why are you being stubborn? Wu Yi, the second young master of the Wu family, was confronting Huo Jingxuan, the third young master of the Huo family. She stepped in and said, who gave you permission to cause such a commotion in the house? The second young master demanded, who are you? She continued, Huo Jingxuan, nice to meet you. I'm your sister-in-law, Ruan Haning. The third young master scowled and retorted, how is this any of your business? He was foul-mouthed and rude. He added, don't think just because you married my brother, you can boss me around. Boom. She swung the bat in their direction and said, What did you say? Both young men were terrified. Sister-in-law, you're my dearest sister-in-law. What are you planning to do? My older brother will be here soon. Oh, is that all? She said calmly. Meanwhile, the butler was noting down, house renovation. The main lead thought, was there an earthquake earlier? Asterisk. The elder brother arrived and remarked, to make those two troublemakers behave, Mrs. Huo, you're quite something. The butler added, Chairman Wu, you're finally here. The queen of the Huo family is quite intimidating. The elder brother continued, however, your family may have been a bit disrespectful to mine. From behind, the second son shouted, stop chatting, brother. Just take me away now, please. Ignoring him, she said, it's just a minor argument between the two young men. How can that be considered disrespectful? Touching her hair, the elder brother replied, are you implying that I shouldn't have come, Mrs. Huo? That's right, she said. If a beauty like Mrs. Huo says I'm in the wrong, then of course, I am. Before she could respond further, the main lead arrived and said, Chairman Wu, if you're interested, why don't you go ahead and reprimand Huo Jingxuan and his companion instead? Suddenly, Wu Yi's demeanor changed. He replied, hey, Chairman Huo, are you suggesting I'm making things difficult for Mrs. Huo? That's not my intention. Since this concerns our young people, feel free to handle it as you see fit. Huo Chen said, I'll let my wife alleviate some of her frustration. Wang, please bring a new baseball bat for the miss. Yes, sir, she thought, I'm not even that upset. It was just a few snide remarks, and he's already seeking justice on my behalf. How protective of him. Asterisk. He then grabbed the second son and said, this kid has been unruly for a long time. Don't feel the need to hold back, Mrs. Huo. She replied, in that case, I have a suggestion, Chairman Wu. If a child is being willful, a good beating is often necessary. Don't you agree? That's right, he agreed. The second son was shouting, save me, brother, please. She continued, why, are you going to take back what you just said? Can't bear to do it, Chairman Wu. The chairman agreed and instructed the butler, change the bat to something thicker. The second son shouted, stop running. Shut up. Not so hard. I'm your only brother. You're just a bonus. Apologize to Mrs. Huo now. I'm sorry. Well, young Master Wu, will you learn to speak properly from now on? The youngest, hiding behind a wheelchair, thought, is this woman really from the slums? She's so intimidating. Asterisk. Wu Yi said, Huo, it's my fault for being foul-mouthed. Please don't take it to heart. Satisfied, she said, now that this matter is resolved, I won't see both of you off. And Mr. Huo, thank you. After both brothers left, she turned to him and spoke, but now that the outsiders have gone, we still have our own discipline. He glanced at her, then turned back and replied, do as you wish. The youngest brother shouted, the people who were stirring up trouble have already left. Why do I still need to be punished? She continued, since I'm your sister-in-law, I'm like a second mother to you. So what if I reprimand you? This one, she said, is for being a child of the Huo family and yet failing to win either a physical or verbal fight. To allow someone to embarrass you in front of your family and bully you right on your doorstep. And this is for being disrespectful to your elders. Who do you think I am, and how should you address me? And finally, this is for your questionable outfit choices. Look at how unkempt you are, it's so embarrassing. You better remember this, she added sternly. Don't try to resolve everything with your fists. He spoke up, you're not going to keep beating me, are you? She replied, not anymore. It's just our own family here now anyway. Wipe your tears and get ready for dinner. He thought to himself, our own family. That doesn't sound too bad. Damn it, did I damage my brain during the beating? He mused. I didn't even hit your head to begin with, she retorted. The butler then spoke. After you left, Mrs. gave the young master a beating, but he didn't seem too upset. I wasn't expecting the Mrs. to have such charisma. He was lost in thought when she arrived. Mr. Huo, she said, I've asked Sister Chen to prepare your favorite dishes. I'll accompany you downstairs for dinner. It's okay, I'm not hungry, he replied. She thought to herself, this Huo Chen looks so mature, but why is he speaking like a child having a tantrum? She insisted, it's not okay. A family needs to have dinner together. Leaning forward, she added, that's a habit of mine, so I hope Mr. Huo can make a habit out of it too. Okay, he thought, extra gentle. Is she trying to coax a child? All right, he finally replied. They then went for dinner. Bro, my brother. The youngest brother was surprised. He thought, hasn't brother been skipping meals recently? Did he take a beating too? She then asked, where's the fifth young mistress? The butler replied, the young mistress will be having dinner in her room. Her room is on the 4th floor. She continued, please wait until the 6th young master gets home before bringing out the dishes. I'll go get the 5th young mistress in the meantime. She thought, the Huo siblings all share the same father but have different mothers, so their personalities differ. Rumor has it that the 5th young mistress had a difficult childhood, which has made her extremely cold, willful, and hard to manage. I wonder if that's true. She opened the door and heard the sound of piano playing. As she entered, she saw a blind little girl playing the piano. The girl hesitated upon sensing a new presence. Why is this little girl a little different from the rumors? She wondered. She then spoke gently, Shaing, don't be afraid. I'm your brother's newlywed wife. My name is Ruan Haning. I overheard you playing the piano earlier. Was that Saint Sains, the swan, am I right? As she touched her, the little girl shouted, don't touch me. Ruan Haning couldn't understand why Shaing was acting that way. What exactly happened to her in the past? She wondered, deeply concerned. In the past, she was kidnapped, and the captors tortured her mercilessly. By the time she was found, much time had passed, and everyone judged her harshly. The memories haunted her still. This is Huo Shaing, the 5th young miss of the Huo family, who was eventually found by her family. Is she the one who was kidnapped by the Huo family's enemies? How could it have taken so long to find her? Despite the Huo family's vast influence, her father was dead, and her mother had lost her mind. No one seemed to care about her. As she played the piano, the sound was dreadful. Could she really be a young miss of the Huo family? She seemed more like an unruly child. How dare she play the piano with such shaky hands? And to think she's playing the swan at this level. She isn't worthy of such a famous piece. Someone, please, help me, she thought, overwhelmed by memories of her past. Our heroine, Ruan Haning, stepped in and started playing the piano herself. Suddenly, the little girl stopped crying. She recognized the song. It was also the swan. Haning then spoke softly, I only know this little chord. Could you teach me the rest of the song? You play very well, I like it very much. The little girl was stunned. Although I can hear a trace of pain in the sound of your piano, Haning continued, get up. I am willing to help you slowly relieve your pain over the next few years, or even decades. We are family, right? The young girl, touched by her words, stopped crying and whispered, yes, of course. They both then went to join the others for dinner. Seeing this, the boys were shocked. The third brother thought, why is my sister crying? Did she get beaten by our sister-in-law too? At that moment, the fourth brother arrived. Hello, sister-in-law, he greeted her. Except for the fourth young miss, Huo Qian, who was abroad, and the second youngest, Huo Yuanzhou, who had gone missing, the entire Huo family was present. She patted the fourth brother and spoke, "You're the youngest, Huo Chen, right? Hurry up, clean yourself up, and get ready for dinner." The third brother thought to himself, "Clean up? After my sister-in-law cleaned up my younger sister, now she's cleaning up my younger brother too. Hurry up, go wash your hands, otherwise, you'll get a beating," he teased. Huo Chen, observing all this, mused, the Huo family really are just a bunch of children eating together. This might be the first time in this house. In that moment, he forgot that he, too, was just another child in the family. The next day asterisk. Early in the morning at the Huo household, Haning thought, "It's nice to be a sister-in-law, demure and elegant. I thought being reborn would be challenging at every turn, but I didn't expect it to go so smoothly. And the Huo family's children are much cuter than I imagined." Suddenly, the youngest came running in a hurry. "Wait a moment, Chang, she called out. "There's no hurry to catch the school bus. Drink your milk first. I'll ask the housekeeper to drive you to school later. If you don't like milk, I'll ask them to replace it with soy milk tomorrow." Chang replied, "No, milk is just fine. Thank you, sister-in-law." She stood up and continued, "Xiaoning, I've asked the kitchen to make you some porridge with pig's liver to nourish your vital energy and blood. Drink more." The third brother then chimed in, "Sister-in-law, what about me? Do I have a present?" Just as she was about to respond, a voice called out, "Third young master, where are you? Let's go out for a drink today, shall we?" "No, no, no," he shouted. "Did Wu Yi ask you to fool me? How can I hang out with you guys when I'm such a good student? I have to go to school today. I'm hanging up." "Sister-in-law," he trailed off. Haning thought, "This kid, something must be done." She spoke calmly, "You, study hard. Yours is an exclusive gift. I'm going to get it ready and send it to your school." He thought excitedly, "A motorbike. A big present. A sports car. She's going to give it to me at school. My sister-in-law knows me so well." She continued, "Go to school after you've finished eating. I'm going home today, so remember to bring your lunchboxes with you." He was thrilled. "Ha, mine is the biggest." Then she turned around and approached her husband. "I specially made this for you," she said, presenting him with a gift. Unexpectedly, "I have one too." "Thank you," he replied, surprised. She had given everyone a thoughtful gift for the day: milk for the youngest, healthy porridge for her sister-in-law, and a collection of books for the third brother. Then she went to her grandmother's house. "Grandma, look, the clothes I'm wearing are new. I just moved into their house yesterday, and he gave me his card, letting me spend however I wanted," she said. Her grandmother looked concerned. "If he treats you well, you should live well with him," she advised. Just then, a voice called out from outside, "Haning, we're coming to see you." It was Ruan Haning's childhood friend, Shen. "Grandma, we bought fish, and we want to have boiled fish for lunch today." Shen exclaimed. "All right, my dear," her grandmother replied. Suddenly, Haning heard a familiar voice outside. She rushed to the window and saw a face she recognized. A guy nearby said, "Yo, isn't that Xiaobai?" In her past life, after she got married, her childhood friends from the slums gradually lost contact with her due to their humble origins. At 20, Shen, desperate for money, entered the entertainment industry. After a tragic miscarriage, she was abandoned and took her own life. Xiaobai, who had been in the same gang as Brother Li, was framed for a crime and spent several years in prison. When he was released, everything had changed, and he regretted it. Frantically, Haning ran out the door. "Grandma, I'm going out for a while," she shouted. Her grandmother called after her, "It's almost time to eat." "Where are you going?" Outside, Xiaobai was smoking with some sketchy guys. Haning approached him and scolded, "Didn't I tell you not to smoke?" One of the guys sneered and said, "Xiaobai, is this your friend?" "She's pretty," Let's bring her along and have some fun. Haning glared at them. Just you. Sooner or later, you're going to get into trouble. Stay away from Xiao Bai. She warned. Hearing this, one of the sketchy guys got angry and pulled out a bat. He shouted, "How can you talk to Brother Li like that? We showed you some respect, didn't we?" He pointed at her threateningly, and she snapped. "Sorry, I hate it when people point at me," she said coldly before swiftly breaking his finger. When another guy tried to attack her, she dodged his swing and hit him hard. "An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Did you understand?" she declared. The injured guy, now in pain, asked, "You woman, what the hell do you want?" "Shish, don't make noise," she replied calmly, taking out her phone. "Hello, is this 110? I'd like to make a police report." The police arrived and quickly arrested the troublemakers. Xiao Bai was left sobbing, unsure of what to do. Haning turned to him and said sternly, "Xiao Bai, don't blame me if I have to break your leg next time you go astray. If you have nothing better to do, read more books. If you don't learn well, I'll be the first to send you to a reform school. That's what will happen if you keep mixing with them. Do you understand?" Xiao Bai apologized, tears in his eyes, and said, "Yes, I understand. Sister Haning is right." Scene shifts to evening. She returned home, where the butler greeted her. "Madam, you're back." She handed him a package and said, "Warm up the food I brought back." Seeing the package, everyone grew curious. "Sister-in-law, what snacks did you bring back?" they asked eagerly. "It's not a snack," she explained. "I was delayed by something and didn't eat at my grandmother's house, so I brought back the leftovers. Do you want to try some?" They all wanted to try it as soon as possible. She then asked, "Mr. Huo, have you been waiting long? Would you like to try this?" He suddenly looked over and replied curtly, "No, I don't want to try." But then his stomach growled loudly, betraying his hunger. Embarrassed, he looked away. She thought to herself, this man speaks with a double tongue. With a smile, she offered, "If you all want to try it so badly, I'll go and cook some for you all." Hearing this, they all became very excited. "The dishes cooked by our sister-in-law. Wow, that's so cool," they exclaimed. As she was about to cook, the doorbell rang. Someone had come at this hour. It was President Wu. He brought flowers for her. Bending down slightly, he spoke, "Thank you, Mrs. Huo, for your help in teaching my incompetent brother. I wonder if Mrs. Huo likes the flowers?" he asked with a smile. She replied, "President Wu, you are very generous. I cannot afford such a grand token of appreciation." He straightened up and responded, "In this world, only Mrs. Huo is deserving of such a gesture. I have met countless people, but none are like you, Mrs. Huo. From the moment I met you, I knew this day would come." She thought to herself, what kind of weirdo is this? But she maintained her composure and said, "I'm used to wandering." With a hint of teasing, she added, "President Wu, sending flowers so openly, do you wish to make headlines or appear in the financial news?" He smiled and said, "Roses are beautiful, and their thorns are sharp. Why don't you join me for dinner tomorrow night? I wouldn't mind a scandal with a beautiful woman." Just then, Huo Chen appeared and intervened, "If you want to have dinner, why don't I join you, President?" With a calm demeanor, he added, "I am always ready to welcome you, President." She thought, is he defending me? It was the first time she felt someone standing up for her. She then spoke, "The Huo family will be there to welcome you." "Goodbye, President." The room was filled with awkwardness. President Wu was too embarrassed to say anything, thinking to himself, "I've been defeated by this couple." As she closed the door, leaving him outside, Chen spoke, "In the future, you can come to me for matters like this." Amazed, she replied, "All right." Later that night, after dinner, she went to his room. "Thank you, Mr. Huo, for helping me out of the situation tonight. I heard from the assistant that it's time for your medication." "Just leave it," he replied. She came closer. "The water is just the right temperature. Mr. Huo, you're not afraid of the bitterness of the medicine, are you?" Suddenly, he started experiencing severe pain. Alarmed, she asked, "What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" The butler, hearing the commotion, rushed in. "Madam, Mr. Huo takes this when he's in pain." He handed her the medicine, but she hesitated and examined it. "Isn't this tramadol? It's a painkiller, but it's highly addictive. It can also be harmful to the body," she remarked. "Huo Chen doesn't take his medication properly, but he's been taking this. Painkillers only suppress the pain, they don't address the root cause. Long-term use is not good for your health. Mr. Huo, let's try to reduce the painkillers and work on proper treatment, okay? You are the pillar of our family, you can't fall like this." Hearing her say, "our family," he felt a sense of relief. The butler, still confused, questioned, "How can it be addictive and harmful to the body?" Mr. Huo had the best specialists prescribe this medication. Chen spoke up. "The specialist concluded that painkillers were the only option to manage my pain, along with some health supplements. I didn't want to struggle unnecessarily, so I just took the painkillers to keep going. I didn't expect this." She thought, those people have already laid their dirty hands this far. If something went wrong back then, maybe there's an issue with the so-called health supplements and test results. She recalled a renowned hospital in Xicheng. She then asked, "Mr. Huo, would you be interested in spending time with me tomorrow? We can do a lot of things together." He replied, "I would be happy to if Mrs. Huo wishes." The butler thought to himself, spending time together. Mr. Huo is enlightened. The next day, both were ready to uncover the mystery. But just as they were about to leave, all the siblings arrived. "Sister-in-law, please wait. Take us with you. We want to go shopping with you." The situation became a bit troublesome, but she managed to say, "Next time, for sure. Next time for sure." Disheartened, the siblings let them go, realizing that both husband and wife had a mission to fulfill. As they set off, she asked, "Is it true that Mr. Huo's movements are so closely watched that you've been followed to the hospital?" He replied, "Probably Cheng Min of the Cheng family. He is my aunt's son and the current acting general manager of the Huo Group. After I fell ill, he became the biggest beneficiary." She shouted angrily, "The Cheng family. I don't care if it's the Cheng family, Li family, or Zhao family, no one can stop me from taking my child, Mr. Huo, to see a doctor." A car was tailing them, so our heroine took a risk and drove like a pro. Finally, they reached the hospital for a checkup. When the results were ready, she asked, "Drive. Gu, what's the result?" "It's curable," the doctor replied. As they chatted, Mr. Huo, who was suffering from motion sickness, listened attentively. The doctor continued, "After a minor operation, taking your medicine on time, and regular follow-ups, you'll be able to walk normally in the future." "Great, it's curable, Mr. Huo muttered. The doctor then asked, "But why didn't you two come earlier? A minor illness can turn into something serious. Is a big shot like you really short of money for treatment?" She responded, "Drive. Gu, you may not know this, but some illnesses can't be treated just because you have money." Just then, a nurse arrived with the results of the medicine test. Reviewing Mr. Huo's old report, the doctor remarked, "Sure enough, these medicines were replaced with depressants that can easily make a person explosive, irritable, and pessimistic." The doctor finally understood what was happening. "It's interesting to see how wealthy families fight each other," he said. Our heroine thought, in his past life, Huo Chen died from depression. This medication probably played a role. The newspapers even reported that President Huo of the Huo Group committed suicide, leaving the company without a successor. Whatever the reason, in this life, no one will harm my child. Asterisk. Noticing her distress, Huo said gently, "Don't be afraid, Mrs. Huo. I'll take care of everything. I'm here, it's all right." She felt a little more at ease. Is he trying to comfort me? She wondered. "I believe in you, Mr. Huo. The most important thing now is to cooperate with the treatment and stay healthy during this period." While comforting each other, they were both lost in thought. She was determined to find a way to eliminate the Chang family, while he resolved to act quickly so she wouldn't have to worry anymore. Each had their own plans, but neither was willing to fully reveal them. Seeing this, the doctor, slightly jealous, interjected, "Excuse me, could you go to the front desk to settle today's consultation fee?" Showing affection in a hospital, now that's an illness that needs curing, he added with a hint of humor. Single man's complaint, asterisk he thought. After the hospital visit, they went shopping for the kids. "Mr. Huo, does this one look good?" she asked, holding up a garment. "Yes, it looks good," he replied. "Mrs. Huo, you've picked a good one." To cover up their hospital visit from the kids, they decided to do some actual shopping. She picked up a tie for him and wanted to see if it suited him. As she leaned forward, they ended up very close. He thought to himself, why does it seem like she's trying on clothes for a child? Asterisk. Then, he gently grabbed her hand to stop her. "Thank you for going through all this trouble," he said. "I like this one." She was a bit flustered and quickly asked the staff to pack the tie. Suddenly, a voice called out, "Cousin brother, long time no see." Haning turned around to see who it was, but Huo already knew. She asked, "Who's calling you, brother?" He replied, "Unrelated people. Don't bother." The girl was Huo Chen's cousin, Cheng Yi. "Cousin brother, why are you ignoring me? My brother just arranged for a doctor to treat your legs, and you didn't even give me any respect," she shouted. Hearing her words, Haning finally understood Huo's behavior. "Treat his legs?" she asked. "So, she's the Chang family's young miss?" "Yes," he replied. Haning gave him a mischievous smile and said, "Mr. Huo, please wait for me here for a moment. I'll be right back." He understood and said, "All right." Haning approached Cheng Yi and said, "Cousin sister Cheng." Cheng Yi asked, "Who are you?" Haning replied, "I'm your cousin sister-in-law, Ruan Haning. I'm not very familiar with this place. Could you show me around?" Cheng Yi agreed but thought to herself, cousin sister-in-law. Isn't she just a country bumpkin from the slums? Let's see what I can do for her. Asterisk. Cheng Yi then picked up the most ridiculous pink lipstick shade and said, "Cousin sister-in-law, this color is the most popular in high society this year. Men will be drawn to you if you wear it." "Is that so?" Haning asked. "Yes," Cheng Yi continued. "How could I lie to you, cousin sister-in-law? It's normal that you haven't seen it before, given your background." Cheng Yi tried to put the shade on her, but Haning was quick. Even the staff was shocked. She grabbed Cheng Yi's hand, took the lipstick, and said, "I also think it's very beautiful. Why don't you try it first, cousin sister?" Cheng Yi found herself lying down with Haning towering above her. The cousin pleaded for mercy, but our heroine wasn't about to let her off without teaching her a lesson. The staff watched, thoroughly entertained by the scene. When Haning was finally done, she tossed the lipstick aside and said, "It's not bad at all. I wouldn't take someone else's belongings. This lipstick is yours, free of charge. Now, settle the bill. Please charge the damages to Mr. Huo's card." The staff eagerly took the card. The cashier thought, as expected of Mrs. Huo, "She's so beautiful and generous." Asterisk. Meanwhile, the cousin was left unattended on the floor, muttering to herself, "Just wait, Haning. I'll get you back for this." The scene shifts to her brother's office. He was reading an article titled, "President Huo's First Appearance After the Car Accident, Showing Off with His Wife at the Mall, and So Generously." A colleague standing nearby commented, "Newlyweds. Mrs. Huo is a beauty, so it's only natural." Frustrated, the brother threw the magazine aside and called out, "Manager Zhao. I didn't hire the doctor at such a high salary just to watch my cousin's brother flaunt his love for his little wife," he complained. "When Huo Chen recovers, we'll be the first ones to go down." Just then, his phone rang. It was his sister calling. "Brother, Ruan Haning is too much," she cried. "She humiliated me in front of everyone. She's such a shrew." He responded calmly, "She's just a woman from the slums. She doesn't understand how people in high society eliminate their enemies without shedding blood. It's easy to get into trouble with her. Hearing her brother's words, she finally relaxed. He continued, when Huo Chen first entered the business world, the Huo family's assets multiplied several times under his leadership. He became the president of the Huo group, and no one dared to cross him in business. Fortunately, after the accident that left him with broken legs, he's been depressed, allowing me, as acting general manager, to have my day at Huo's. But before the Huo group can be rebranded as the Chang group, I must bring him down. Since his wife is so ignorant, let's start with her. I'm looking forward to seeing how she handles herself at the Gu family banquet. The scene shifts to the Huo mansion, where both husband and wife have just returned. The younger siblings were eager to see what they had brought for them and thanked her for the gifts. Then, the butler approached Haning and handed her an invitation. Madam, Old Master Gu has acquired a rare orchid and is holding a banquet in its honor. He has specially invited the Huo family to attend. Haning muttered to herself, the Gu family's banquet. She thought, the two siblings are probably plotting something again. Huo then explained to her, I'm not well enough to attend such family banquets, so I'll have Madam attend on behalf of the Huo family. She responded, since Mr. Huo has made all the arrangements, I'll take the kids to congratulate Old Master Gu. Who wants to come along? The younger siblings eagerly volunteered, me. My younger siblings are too young, and my elder brother isn't going, so I'll be there with my sister-in-law to hold down the fort. Yes, sister-in-law, I want to go too. Huo decided not to let the youngest siblings attend, so they all went off to prepare for the banquet. At the banquet, the guests were all gathered. Cheng Yi, the cousin, was there, along with another daughter of the Huo family who had just returned to the city and came straight to the event. They chatted as they mingled. Cheng Yi said, Qian, I heard your sister-in-law is coming today. Qian, who was unaware of her brother's marriage, replied, I don't have a sister-in-law. Who would want some random woman to be my sister-in-law? Is she even worthy? How could my elder brother marry a woman from the slums? She continued, doesn't he know the quality of people from that place is the lowest? Cheng Yi agreed, who says it isn't? I'm embarrassed to even mention her to anyone. Her behavior is vulgar, and she's entangled with President Wu in a way that perfectly matches her background. Then, the announcement was made, the Huo family had arrived. Cheng Yi turned to Qian and said, go meet your sister-in-law and see what she's like. The focus of the banquet shifted to the Huo family, particularly the new bride. The guests began to murmur among themselves. Is that someone from the Huo family? Hasn't it been a while since they attended a banquet like this? Cheng Yi, unimpressed, said, what's the point of looking good? Are there not plenty of pretty faces like hers? With her looks, she probably thinks she can blend into the circle of wealthy families. She's not afraid of climbing too high and falling to pieces, is she? Don't you think so, Qian? But Qian was mesmerized by Haning's aura. She finally spoke, with that look and aura, she might actually be a good match for my elder brother. Hearing this, Cheng Yi was furious. What are you talking about? Are you actually accepting that woman as your sister-in-law? Qian shrugged, I don't bother with such things. I'm going outside for some fresh air. Well, Huo Qian, Cheng Yi thought angrily. Since you're not on my side, I'll start with you. The banquet was more peaceful than expected, and Haning was beginning to relax. Suddenly, the sound of something breaking echoed through the room. Everyone was startled. What's going on? What happened? Old Master Gu's orchids. They're broken. Huo Qian, what have you done? Hearing the name, Haning turned around. The Huo family's fourth young miss, Huo Qian. She's back in the country. Is this the kind of etiquette your Huo family shows when you're guests in someone's home? This is a rare variant of the double-petal orchid crown. There is only one in the world, and it's rumored to be worth $1 billion. Everyone in H City knows that Old Master Gu treasures orchids, and this one has been personally cared for by him. Qian defended herself. No. Someone pushed me, and I couldn't keep my balance. I accidentally knocked over the flower pot. Someone, please escort Miss Huo out. One of the hosts demanded. From now on, the Huo family is no longer welcome at the Gu family's events. Qian pleaded, I'm truly sorry, please don't let this affect the Huo family. The guests began to murmur amongst themselves. The Gu family is openly turning against the Huo family. Is each city on the brink of a shift in power? What has Huo Chen done? He can't even stand up for himself, and his siblings seem to only know how to cause trouble. Suddenly, Cheng Yi's voice cut through the chatter. Qian, do you realize the trouble you've caused? She was secretly delighted by the chaos. After all, she was the one who had pushed Qian. The Huo family is going to be completely ruined this time. What are you so proud of? Cheng Yi continued, you're so ignorant. With an attitude like this, I can't help you. Just then, a voice called out, excuse me, could you turn around? Who is it? Cheng Yi asked. The person who had called her name grabbed Cheng Yi and slapped her hard. It was none other than Hangsing. Cheng Yi shrieked, Qian made the mistake, why did you slap me? Ruan Haning, are you out of your mind? Hangsing stood firm. Yes, I slapped you. The Huo and Cheng families share deep bonds. Something happened to your cousin, and instead of defending her, you gloat. Apologize to Qian. Qian, still in shock, muttered, sister-in-law. Cheng Yi screamed again, you slapped me in public. Why should I apologize? Ruan Haning, I'll fight you. Hangsing replied calmly, the Huo family has treated your Cheng family well. After Huo Chen's accident, they even entrusted your brother with the Huo group. Does Cheng Min know this is how you treat the Huo family in public? She kicked Cheng Yi hard. Heartless, ungrateful people, apologize now. Cheng Yi, now on the floor, finally relented. In a low voice, she muttered, Qian, I'm sorry. But Hangsing wasn't satisfied. Did Miss Cheng skip a meal, or is her voice so weak that she's trying to imitate a mosquito? Finally, Cheng Yi apologized properly, Qian, I'm sorry. It was wrong of me to say those things. The head of the Gu family spoke up, well, it seems your family issue has been resolved. However, the Gu family's house is too small to accommodate the Huo family any longer. Please leave. Hangsing reflected, in my past life, the Zhang family had me learn how to care for orchids in order to curry favor with the Gu family. Eventually, they replaced the Huo family, and I ended up discarded like a used tool. But as Mrs. Huo in this life, I still have a chance. Hangsing stepped forward and addressed the head of the Gu family, Old Master Gu, please don't worry. I assure you my sister is not an unruly or ignorant person. He replied, you're a girl who knows how to handle things, but the Huo family is indeed responsible for this incident. Hangsing continued, Old Master Gu is right, the Huo family made a mistake, and we should be held accountable. I've studied orchid cultivation and am willing to try to save this orchid. Give me 3 months, and if I can't restore it, the Huo family will compensate you in whatever way you see fit. The old man was angry and shouted, you speak with such arrogance. But another voice suddenly chimed in. Since Mrs. Huo has offered, let her try. The old man reluctantly agreed, HMPH. Since my grandson is willing to vouch for you, Mrs. Huo, I'll give you 3 months. But what about that doctor? Is he a descendant of the Gu family? Thank you, old master, Hangsing replied, but this matter isn't fully resolved. I would like to check the surveillance footage. Cheng Yi suddenly intervened, shouting, who dares? How bold do you have to be to bully the Huo family? Do you think you can just investigate as you please? Hangsing sensed something was amiss and asked, why are you so agitated? Did you push her? Are you scared? Cheng Yi denied it vehemently, how could it be me? Huo Qian was so close to the orchid, she was on her tiptoes. Anyone could have pushed her. How can you accuse me? Qian interjected, how do you know I was on my tiptoes, Cheng Yi? You couldn't have seen my posture unless you were right next to me. Shocked, Cheng Yi stammered, you're my cousin. How could you think I would do such a thing? The banquet hall was filled with murmurs. It was her, the one who cries for help while being the thief. Disgusting. How can someone be so shameless? The Huo family is truly unlucky to have such a relative. Chang Yi tried to divert attention. No, I sprained my ankle. Don't come near me, your sister-in-law has already beaten me. Hangsing stepped in. So what if I have beaten you? She then instructed Qian, slap Chang Yi. Qian slapped Chang Yi. I am the fourth young miss of the Huo family. Does the Chang still want to turn the world upside down? Chang Yi fell to the floor. The doctor then spoke up. Please escort Miss Cheng out. From now on, neither she nor anyone from the Cheng family is welcome at the Gu family's banquets. With all the commotion finally subsiding, the atmosphere at the banquet lightened. Guests began to gather around Hangsing. One guest asked, Mrs. Huo, you're so beautiful. What skincare products do you use? Could you share them with me? Another guest chimed in, Mrs. Huo, you were so agile just now. Have you trained in something? Could you teach me? Mrs. Huo made friends with the Gu family. That's quite bold, someone remarked. Meanwhile, the youngest sibling, feeling unwell, clung to Hangsing. Suddenly, they heard the sound of a piano being played. Then someone said, Master Yu is here tonight to accept students. Hearing this, Hangsing was surprised. She thought this might be a great opportunity for the youngest sibling. I've heard that fifth young Miss Huo loves playing the piano, another guest said. This is a rare chance, wouldn't you like to give it a try? What if Master Yu accepts you? Another person scoffed. Are you serious? Irritated, Qian shouted, are you all deliberately picking a fight? Aren't you afraid my sister-in-law will deal with you? One of the girls responded, what are you talking about? This is a chance for fifth young Miss Huo to show off. Qian retorted, let her play the piano on stage. She's not going to cry and shake, is she? Another girl teased, does Master Yu want to accept her? He might as well accept me. Finally, Hangsing spoke up, do you think Master Yu accepts students based on who is better at belittling others? As the bickering continued, Master Yu suddenly stopped playing the piano and spoke. That's right, useless verbal sparring only ruins the music. Anyone will have the opportunity to perform on stage tonight. I choose students based on the sound of the piano. He then addressed the youngest sibling, would you like to try it, little girl? One girl taunted, then let Huo Shaing go. I don't believe this loser can really wow us. Hangsing reassured Shaoning, don't be nervous. I'll accompany you on stage. Sister-in-law believes in you. Hearing Hangsing's words gave Shaoning a bit of courage. Hangsing continued, Shaoning, don't look at them, and don't care about their reactions. Just focus on your keys and follow your feelings. Nothing else matters. Finally, Shaoning began to play. The song she played was melodious, and everyone was surprised. Guests began to murmur, she really can play well. As expected of the young miss of the Huo family. Hearing all the applause, Shaoning became more confident in her performance. After her small recital, Master Yu approached her. You are the most spiritual and gifted piano player I have ever met, she said. Would you like to study piano with me, little girl? Overjoyed, Shaoning replied, yes, Master, I would love to. After the banquet, everyone returned to the Huo mansion. The siblings were all celebrating Shaoning's achievement. Qian then went to meet her elder brother. The moment she entered the room, he began to scold her. You can't distinguish between loyalty and betrayal, and you have no defense. Do you think your sister-in-law and the Huo family can protect you for the rest of your life? Just then, Hangsing entered and spoke up, Mr. Huo should trust me. It's not impossible to protect them for life. Seeing her face, his tone suddenly changed. He then spoke politely, aren't you a little too protective of them? Hangsing responded, we're family. It's not just them, I want to protect you too. Seeing an opportunity, Qian quietly tried to slip away, but her brother grabbed her and said, my wife, are you treating me like a child too? Have you forgotten? I am not only an adult man but also your husband. Post-credits scene. Dr. Gu Specialist Outpatient Clinic. President Huo, you keep letting your wife sit on your lap. This will really make you disabled. Mr. Huo said, Mrs. Huo, you can rely on me a little more. She smirked and replied, then I'll respectfully submit. He continued, don't overwork yourself because of family matters. Suddenly, their sweet talk was interrupted by Qian, who came running. Sister-in-law, something happened to the orchid crown. Lan Lan was unlucky. Lan Lan couldn't speak up. Hangsing thought, did something go wrong? This wasn't what I expected. Asterisk. Qian explained, I just came to check on the orchid crown, and I didn't expect it to turn out like this. What should we do, sister-in-law? Hangsing reassured her. Don't worry, I'll think of a way. I still need to visit grandfather Zhang to ask for an ancient book on orchid breeding, she thought. I don't know if the timeline has changed after being reborn, but I have to go without delay. While Hangsing was away, someone came demanding to meet her. The servant approached Mr. Huo and informed him, Sir, there's a gentleman at the door asking for Madam, but she's not at home at the moment. Mr. Huo instructed, let him in, and I will meet with him. As the visitor entered, Mr. Huo realized he was a friend of Hangsing. He asked, Who are you, and why do you want to meet my wife? Xiao, visibly upset, shouted, What's wrong? Sister Hangsing only married into your Huo family, she wasn't sold to you. Can't we even visit her as friends? Mr. Huo replied, My wife left for Xicheng early this morning. If there's anything important, you can tell me, and I will pass on the message to her. Xiao stood up, alarmed. Sister Hangsing went to Xicheng. Oh no, Brother Li's men will definitely seek revenge on her. Surprised, Mr. Huo asked, Revenge? What on earth is going on? Xiao explained, In order to stand up for me, Sister Hangsing not only fought with Brother Li but also sent him to the police station. Mr. Huo responded, Is that so? Alright, let's find her first. In the Xicheng district, Hangsing was searching for the book she needed. Why is the book no longer here? She wondered. Did my rebirth bring about a butterfly effect? Asterisk. The butterfly effect is the idea that small things can have nonlinear impacts on a complex system. Suddenly, a voice called out, Sister Hangsing. Xiao appeared, concerned. Are you okay? What are you and Mr. Huo doing here? Hangsing replied, I heard about the orchids, so I borrowed this book from my uncle and wanted to bring it to you. Hangsing was relieved. Oh, so you have the book. Xiao grinned, I knew you'd need it. Am I considerate or what? No wonder my uncle was so grumpy when I went to borrow the book, asterisk she thought. Thank you, you've been a great help, she said. Suddenly, a group of dogs approached them. Xiao quickly stood in front of Hangsing, holding her hand to protect her. Seeing this, Mr. Huo grew angry, and the butler shouted, Mr. Xiao, watch your behavior. Don't go too far. Xiao retorted, Too far. Mr. Huo, don't you know that Sister Hangsing is afraid of dogs? When we were young, I was the one who protected her, and I'll do it now too. Mr. Huo then said, It's just some dogs, and now that she's in the Huo family, I won't let her suffer from this again. Xiao continued, Although I, Xiao Bai, am not as powerful as your Huo family, I will still do my best to protect Sister Hangsing. Hangsing patted his head playfully, Brat, who asked you to go all out? Xiao was happy and said, Well, I've delivered the book, and Sister Hangsing is safe, so I'll take my leave now. Mr. Huo, unable to do much about the situation, asked Hangsing, You two seem very close. Hangsing smiled, That's right. I grew up with Xiaobai and Shen Nai, and we all consider each other family. This place is where we used to play when we were kids. Those lines you see are from our height measurements. Mr. Huo remarked, It seems you've been prestigious since you were a child. Hangsing shook her head, No, I've always convinced people with reasoning. He smiled, Then you can tell me more about these things in the future. I want to know more about you. She nodded in agreement. Just then, a group of thugs spotted Hangsing and recognized her. Brother, isn't that the woman who framed Brother Li? Yes. Let's go, brothers, and avenge him. Seeing the thugs approaching, Mr. Huo said, This old town is dangerous. I'll help you. But Hangsing stopped him. No need. What unsightly pests. She took a bat and, with confidence, said, Don't you see my husband is here? She then began to fight off the thugs, her movements swift and decisive. "What kind of small fry dares to provoke me?" she exclaimed, her demeanor fierce and commanding. Seeing her in this powerful, no-nonsense mode, the butler remarked, "Mr. Huo, it would be wise to obediently listen to Madam from now on." After finishing off the thugs, she dusted off her hands and said, "Call it a day. I'll send you off to have a reunion dinner with your boss now." Mr. Huo, impressed, said, "Mrs. Huo, your martial arts skills are extraordinary. From investments to orchids to martial arts, I wonder what surprise you'll bring me next." Just then, her phone rang. She answered, "Chang Lin's guardian. You found something concerning with him. I'll come to the school as soon as possible." When she arrived at the school, she saw a painting created by Huo Changlin. The teacher spoke, "Huo Changlin's parents, I believe the child may have deeper psychological issues." Hangsing thought, "At first, I didn't think there was anything wrong with Huo Changlin. But after some reflection, she remembered how Huo's father was a notorious womanizer, always surrounded by women. Changlin was merely the product of one such fleeting encounter. Growing up in a world of wealth and power, with parents who hardly cared about him, it wasn't surprising that Changlin might have developed psychological problems. "Changlin," she said gently, "can you take me to your studio?" He hesitated but then asked his brother, "Brother, aren't you going to scold me?" His brother replied, "Why would I scold you? You didn't do anything wrong." Changlin relaxed a bit and said, "Then follow me. I'll show you around the studio." Hangsing asked, "Changlin, can you show me your work?" With some reluctance, Changlin unveiled his masterpiece. As he removed the cloth from the painting, both Hangsing and Mr. Huo were taken aback by what they saw. "This is an orc," Changlin began. "People think he shouldn't exist in this world. He's despised by society, told to die, and in return, he harbors hatred for the world. I'm sorry for the ugliness of this painting, I know you don't like it." Hangsing composed herself and then said, "You have a unique perspective, but do you mind if I add a few strokes to it?" Changlin looked at her, surprised. "I don't mind. Go ahead, sister-in-law." He hesitated before continuing, "Sister-in-law, don't you think someone who draws such a picture is disturbed?" Hangsing replied, "Every child has their own personality. I'm not a machine that produces uniformly shaped parts, and I won't ask children to dull their edges to fit in. At your age, you can fully explore the use of color. Just looking at your painting, I can sense the depth of emotion you've poured into it, which is a testament to your talent. But look," she added some bright strokes to the painting. "Even if the painting has a dark tone, just a hint of color can completely transform its feel. Our Changlin sees the world differently, and that's something special. So go ahead, paint the world as you see it." Changlin's thoughts wandered back to the countless times he had been scolded by his biological mother for picking up a brush. Every time he showed her a painting, she screamed at him, telling him to leave. He never imagined that anyone would ever appreciate his work. So this is what it feels like to be recognized, he thought. Mr. Huo spoke up, "Changlin, you can tell us anything. We're family. In the future, I'll hire professional teachers to help you hone your skills, so you can continue to do what you love." Hearing this, Changlin's eyes welled up with tears. He looked at them both and said, "Thank you, brother. Thank you, sister-in-law." Later, as Hangsing went to tend to the flowers, Mr. Huo approached her and said, "Thank you for everything you've done for the Huo family." She responded, "It's nothing. After all, this is also my responsibility." Hearing this, Mr. Huo felt a twinge of sadness. Is she only responsible for this family? He wondered. What about love? She was very happy. As expected, I followed the method in the book and saw immediate results. Then she turned around and asked, "By the way, let's invite Chow Bai Tao to our house for dinner." After all, he helped a lot this time. Without facing her, he replied, "I mind." She muttered, "Is the overbearing president's expression the weather in June? How come they change so fast?" He continued, "That's right, Mrs. One more thing. After my car accident, the Huo family has been silent for a long time. Please Mrs. to prepare a family banquet and make it as lively as possible. She turned around and replied, okay, then I'll draw up a list, and then I'll show it to Mr. Huo. He smiled and spoke to Mrs. Meanwhile at Chang family, Chang Yi shouts at her brother, I'm not going to the Huo family's banquet. If I go, that bitch Huo Qian will be so arrogant. I don't want to disgrace myself. Her brother was furious because of her behavior. He grabbed her hands and spoke, you have to attend, you have to go no matter what. If you are so disobedient again, don't blame brother for not considering our siblinghood. She then paused and spoke, okay, I will try my best to get her forgiveness. He lifted her chin and continued, behave well my dear sister. When I am well, our Chang family can be well, and you can continue to live in luxury, understand? Scene shifts to the day Huo family banquet. In the hall all the guests were gathered. Cheng Li. She spoke, Cheng Lin, don't be so nervous. Just think of them as cabbages. He replied, I'm not nervous. Even though he was. Finally the Cheng siblings came and Cheng Yi spoke. Sister-in-law Hangsing, I'm sorry, I was so confused on the day of the banquet that I didn't defend Qian. I'm here to apologize to you today. Hangsing turned around and replied, why are you apologizing to me? Shouldn't you apologize to Qian? If you only have such a little sincerity, please go back. The Cheng Li intervened and spoke, that's right. Don't think you are sincere just because your name is Cheng Yi. Cheng Yi tried to approach Hangsing and spoke, Sister Han Sheng, wait. This time I am really sincere. In order to express my apology, I especially invited your sister whom you haven't seen for a long time to come and see you. Then a familiar voice came, Sister, long time no see, I miss you so much. It was her step-sister. She continued, why don't you invite me to your banquet? I thought you were angry with me and didn't want to see me anymore. Seeing here there Hangsing thought, is this Cheng Yi really brainless or fake brainless? She actually invited Ruan Wei-si to come here. Ruan Wei-si tried to approach Cheng Li. Hey, this kid is Huo Chen's brother, right? He's so good looking. He immediately stepped back. Seeing this Ruan Wei-si asks, Sister, did you hate me so much that even your little brother-in-law is full of hostility towards me? I just want you to have a happy life here. Sister, don't hate me. Hearing her words Hangsing was pissed because after all because of her and her mother her life was so difficult. Hangsing then spoke, hostility. How could it be? Look how well behaved he is. Hearing Hangsing, Ruan Wei-si was offended. She tried to resume the conversation. But then a guy interrupts them. He spoke, Lady, you are making a scene for no reason. Maybe this little brother is just afraid of the touch of others. Seeing the face of that young man, Ruan Wei-si was surprised. She thought how handsome this guy was. But Hangsing was pissed off because he was her husband in past life. He continued, after the last slum farewell with Miss Hangsing, I remembered Miss Hangsing in my heart. She was lost in thought, last time. Was it the incident when I saved him in the slum before we got married? It's been so long and he still remembered, really like a piece of sticking plaster. He then grabbed her hand. She was startled, and she shouted, Sir, please behave yourself. He continued, the favor of a drop of water has been rewarded with the gratitude of a fountain of water. What's more, Miss Hangsing saved me. Miss, you won't forget me, will you? He then grabbed her waist. She again shouts, I say again, please behave yourself. He then smirked and continued, no woman has ever rejected me like you. Miss, are you playing hard to get with me? She then spoke, playing hard to get. I think you peeled off your left cheek and pasted it on your right cheek. You are thick-skinned and shameless at the same time. He continued, do you have to speak so harshly? At least I'm an able-bodied man. I'm better than your disabled husband. Wad needs you to take care of him, okay? Miss, Huo Chen can't give you happiness at all. She then shouts, I don't need outsiders to comment on how he and I are doing. Then suddenly a voice came from the crowd. Look, Huo's daughter-in-law dares to flirt with another man in public. It seems that the HUD family is really falling. I didn't expect the once glorious President Huo to have a day when he was cuckolded, which is really rare. The Huo family lost their reputation. Then suddenly Ruan Haning spoke loudly, "Sister, how can you flirt with another man in public? Even if you don't like brother-in-law, you can't do this. Where is my brother-in-law going to put his face? Sister, you're also the daughter of the Ruan family after all, can you stop acting like you lack a man?" Hearing this, Chang Li was furious. He then shouts at Ruan Haning, "You bad woman. How can you say that about my sister-in-law? She is not such a person." But she anyhow continued, "You are a child and you don't understand some things. I speak out to stop my sister's inappropriate behavior for my sister's benefit. Is your family a family of people who do not understand things?" Chang Li was ready to throw hands, but then suddenly Haning interrupted. She spoke, "Ruan Haning, you seem to have forgotten one thing. You are an illegitimate daughter born of a mistress, you also have the courage to say such things to me." Ruan Haning replied, "What nonsense you are talking about?" Haning continued, "Nonsense? Do you want me to repeat the facts? You were the product of Ruan Haning cheating, and the proof that Yung Chuyu was shameless as a mistress." She continued, "Sister, I am trying to persuade you with good intentions. It's fine if you don't listen, but why are you have such an odo way of speaking?" Haning continued, "I didn't do anything. I just want to wash your mouth for you." She then threw the glass of champagne on her. Ruan Haning was startled. "What are you doing, sister?" Haning continued, "I hope this glass of champagne can make my dear sister keep your mouth clean in the future. Next time if you want to provoke me again, it won't be like this." Then she turned around and saw him. He tried to talk, "That, miss, I was." Haning was furious and shouted, "You, get out of here." That guy and her step-sister ran away. She then took a sip of wine and found it spicy. Meanwhile, the guests started muttering, "This Huo family's daughter-in-law is not easy to deal with, she makes her sister run away in anger. Her little sister does not seem to be a good thing either. I heard that she and her family grew up in the slums, what quality can they have?" Then Mr. Huo came to the banquet. "Thank you for your concern for my wife. I believe that you are all smart people, to distinguish what to say and what not to say. I just got into a car accident and I haven't died. The Huo family is not at the end of the line yet." "My wife, don't you think so?" She muttered, "My wife you." But suddenly her stomach became wobbly. She ran away from the banquet. Someone spoke, "Is she left?" "Yes, does she feel guilty conscience?" Chang Yi tried to please her brother. "Brother, I did so well this time. Brother, you should not scold me again, right?" But he shouts, "Damn it. The whole world knows that the Ruan family sisters are not on good terms, and you invite her over to make amends." Then the middle sibling came. He started babbling nonsense. Sister-in-law left the banquet, brother also ran for her. What if she decided to throw him out? Did she beat up the guests too? He was overreacting. Qian spoke, "This child's brain has a big hole." Chang Li spoke, "Tomorrow, my sister-in-law will beat him up and he'll be fine." Another sister spoke, "Oh my god, you should go see a psychiatrist." Then the scene shifts to the restroom where Haning was resting. Mr. Huo entered. Seeing him, her mood lightened up. She spoke, "Mr. You are here." He came to see whether she was okay or not. He asks, "What are you doing here alone?" She then took out something. She replied, "I'm thinking about how to make the best use of your 50 million. At today's banquet, the Chang family actually lowered their dignity and apologized to Qian, and even made a joke. This Cheng Yi is really brainless, but this Cheng Min is a bit dangerous, so I want to use this 50 million to make him miserable. First, I'm telling Mr. Huo in advance what this 50 million will be used for." He continued, "It doesn't matter, I'll let Mrs. control it, and if you don't have enough, please let me know." She muttered. He agreed. She asked, "What about going to my grandma's house with me when the banquet is over?" "Sure, he replied. He looked at her and thought, she seems more lively today. She thought, he always seems to say yes to all my requests. At the same time they both spoke. You. Then they giggle. Mr. Huo continued, you speak first. She then said, it's nothing, I just want to thank you. She got a flashback of her past life, where her mother-in-law was scolding her in front of her husband but he did absolutely nothing. It's already the glory of your ancestral grave for you to marry into the Zhang family. You've been married for a year and you can't even give birth to a child. You're really a sow that can't give birth. What's the use of keeping you in the Zhang family? The reason was her husband had an affair, that's why. I may have to struggle in the mud again for a long time. Then continued to lie to myself. She then said, that's great, fortunately, I met you in this life. He muttered what it meant, this life, she met me. He then spoke, with me by your side, you don't have to be afraid of anything. Hearing his words she was very happy. She then sat on his lap, he was overjoyed but at the same time flustered. She then asks, what about you, what do you want to say? He asked, I want to ask, did Mrs. drink wine today? She told him that, I only drank a little. He muttered, you're drunk. She repeated, so I'm drunk, no wonder I feel dizzy. He laughed and cited, silly girl. Why did he keep looking at me? Am I pretty? He smiled and spoke, yes, very pretty. Then they both hugged and kissed each other. But she was so drunk that she fell asleep in his arms. He can't believe how anyone can sleep like that, but he found it very cute. So he didn't disturb her. In the morning middle sibling was having a weird dream, in which his sister-in-law kissed his brother and then she ate him. Meanwhile, the couples went to see Hangsing's grandmother. Hangsing was driving. While driving me, Huo teased her by reminding last night. Hearing this she was very embarrassed. Because of this she started driving harshly. After a while they arrive at grandmother's house. Because of her driving, he felt so dizzy. She told him, my grandma is getting old, and she often talks about you to me, and she wants to see you. Grandma, how can you say that about me? When she was about to enter, she heard her grandmother's voice. Take this man and get out of this house. You are not welcome here. When she saw, two people were already present there. Seeing them she was surprised. She shouts, what are you doing here? They were her stepsister and past life husband who created a fuss at the banquet. Grandma was relieved. She called Hangsing. Seeing Hangsing, she was surprised. But then she saw someone with her. She then glances at Mr. Huo. Because she has never met him so wasn't sure who was that. But then she analyzes that the person is in the wheelchair and Hangsing is also with him. So it must be her husband. She was told that Mr. Huo was just not disabled as well as he was ugly. But seeing this handsome man she was surprised. She then asks Hangsing who is this. But Hangsing ignored her. Mr. Huo then asks Hangsing who is this. Before she can respond her step-sister spoke. I am Ruan Haning, you don't know me, Mr. Huo. He then replied, is there any need to know you? She continued, actually, I am Hansing's younger sister, Ruan Haning, and I'm also Mr. Huo's original fiancé. I was relieved to see my sister and brother-in-law have a good relationship, and I also trouble Mr. Huo to tolerate my sister's temper. He then smiled and spoke, it seems that you don't know enough about Huo Shaing. I have been under the care of Huo Shaing, and she is a very sweet and kind girl in my eyes. And I am very glad to have her as my wife. Hangsing was flustered. She muttered, what are you talking about? He continued, speechless loaded up love, who can have my love? From behind grandma was pleased my good grandson-in-law. Seeing how handsome and sweet he is Ruan Haning was jealous. She thought this amazing man was supposed to be mine. This all is mine. Then Mr. Zhang was about to approach Hangsing. Hangsing then spoke in a firm voice, Mr. Zhang, do I know you well? No matter what purpose you two came to my house, but please get out now. You are not welcome here. Hearing Hangsing's words he was about to say something but Ruan Haning stopped him. She then spoke, sorry to disturb you all, we are leaving now. While they were leaving, Hangsing felt that there was something off. Outside he was furious. He shouts, "Why did you pull me out for?" She grabbed his hand with her full power. He thought, "This girl is so strong." She then spoke in a soft voice, "Young Master Zhang, I have a favor to ask." He was skeptical about something. He asked, "What is it?" She continued, "I want you to help me rescue my sister from the Huo family's misery. Is that okay? I just think that only by marrying you, my sister gets real happiness." "Young Master Zhang, will you help me?" Hearing her words, he was pleased. He already knew her words had double meaning, but he thought this was something interesting. So he agreed. Meanwhile, inside the house, Grandma was happy. Hangsing asks, "Grandma, why did they come to see you for?" Her grandma replied, "The two of them said a lot of bad things about the Huo family in front of me, and they also said that after you marry into Huo family, you will turn bad. They are really psychopaths. They also said that you cheated 50 million, although I believe you. You will never do such things. I believe that you did not cheat the money, but the money should not be exposed openly. I am afraid that you will encounter some danger." Hangsing then spoke, "Grandma, don't worry, the 50 million was given for investment. The news is also released by us, in order to lure interested people into taking the bait." Grandma had no idea what Hangsing was talking about, but she thought it must be a good plan. Then Hangsing introduced Mr. Huo to Grandma. "Grandma, let me introduce to you, this is my husband Huo Chen." He spoke, "Hello Grandma, I am Huo Chen." Grandma was overjoyed. She pulled his cheek and spoke, good boy, good boy. I have heard Hangsing talking about you. Hope she doesn't bully you. When will you have a child? Grandma will help you to take care of your baby." "I never thought that Mr. Huo would be unable to resist," says Mrs. Huo. Mr. Huo replied, "I was unable to resist Mrs., let alone your grandma." Mrs. Huo was concerned that the news of 50 million was spreading really fast and was already heard by 2 people in a day. Huo Chen's aunt exclaimed, "You are finally back," as they entered the house. Mrs. Huo replied, "Sure," thinking how they were talking about it, and Auntie was already there. Meanwhile, Wang quickly left with Mr. Huo. Auntie continued, "Han Xing, Auntie has something to talk about with you, and it's a very good thing. I heard that you have opened an investment company." In return, Mrs. Huo said, "Yes, but I don't know anything about this, it's all recommended by an assistant." Continuing with, "The return on a few projects is really impressive. After all, who would mind having more money, right? Sure enough, she is easy to deceive," as Cheng Min said. Thought Auntie and said, "It's good that you have this idea," and Auntie agrees to it. "But we, as women, still need more money to be confident. To be honest, Auntie has also invested in a lot of projects, the most. That's a full 10-fold increase. A profit of 10 million is nothing if you don't make it." Mrs. Huo asked, "Really? What did you invest in, Auntie? Can you introduce me to it too?" Auntie replied, "In that case, I will tell you about it." Auntie knows that there is an investment company with prospects in a market. "I am preparing to inject capital these few days. If it is successful, at least I can earn this amount again." Mrs. Huo questioned Auntie with a slight smirk, "But Auntie, let me tell you the truth, but please don't laugh at me. I am willing to invest with my auntie, but it is the first time I have spent so much money, and I really have no idea. Why don't you take me to the company to have a look?" Auntie knew that the company is used for money laundering and thought, maybe Han Xing would be able to tell, but she didn't even graduate from university, what could she know? Besides, the company is full of my cronies, so I still can fool her around. So, Auntie agreed and told her that, "Okay, then I will take you to have a look tomorrow, but this matter, don't tell others, after all, we should not expose our wealth." Mrs. Huo thanked my auntie and went to Mr. Huo. There, while reading a book, she asked Mr. Huo, "That foreign trade company, if I remember correctly, that was given to Auntie Huo by old Master Huo when he was alive, right?" Mr. Huo asked, "How do you know about it?" Mrs. Huo replied, "I accidentally glanced at a file." Mrs. Huo figured if the company was given to Auntie Huo by Old Master Huo at that time, and it must be in order to separate that company from the Huo group, so that it is more convenient to do something, and then said, "This Cheng Min is really ambitious. Auntie Huo is just a pawn he put on the surface." Mr. Huo replied, "I underestimated Cheng Min before." Mrs. Huo remarked, "This Aunt Huo is really impatient." Mr. Huo suggested, "Tomorrow, Mrs. You take assistance with Han with you and be careful." The next day, in the Foreign Trade Company. "Are you all ready? Over there. Put some documents over there. Put away everything that doesn't fit," said one employee. "President Chang, will this work?" said another. Another asked Chang, "Do you want to transfer all those things to the company?" Chang Yuan arrogantly replied, "What to transfer? Even if she has the means, she's just an idiot who didn't graduate from university. Even if you show her the confidential documents, she probably won't understand them, so don't be afraid." Mrs. Huo enters the company with assistant Han and asks, "Is this the company?" Cheng replied, "Ms. Ruan, I've heard a lot about you. And this is." Mrs. Huo introduced her assistant and said, "If you need anything, just talk to her, I'll just look around." Cheng thought, she is an ignorant and stupid beauty, but that's what makes her so easy to deceive. While assistant Han said to Cheng, "Mr. Cheng, I have a few doubts about this investment project." Meanwhile, Mrs. Huo was wandering in the company thinking, well-developed limbs, simple-minded. That's the level of the people you have under you, Auntie Huo. Then she swiftly grabbed a book while sitting on the office chair thinking, so this is what it's like to be a boss. Suddenly she noticed something on the desktop. "You guys didn't hide it. You guys really think I'm an idiot, huh?" thought Mrs. Huo while copying the data. Unexpectedly Chang, Auntie and assistant Han entered the room talking. Chang noticed Mrs. Huo in front of the monitor and wondered if she found the fake accounting documents. But when he checked the screen there was just a game named Minesweeper. Mrs. Huo asked, "Are we done? How's it going?" Han replied, "I already have a preliminary understanding of the situation. The next I need to do is..." Mrs. Huo cuts Han and says, all right, I don't want to hear it. You tell me directly, can I invest, how much I invest?" Han replied, "Ms. Ruan, there is no way to directly tell you the result now. We need to carry out a risk assessment, but the return on foreign is very risky, but there are very promising investment prospects." Auntie interfered and said, "Han Xing, we are all family, Auntie will not lie to you. Such a good thing is once in a lifetime opportunity. You think about it carefully, this investment is absolutely profitable." Mrs. Hu told Auntie to wait for good news and left in the car with Han. During the ride, Mrs. Huo complimented Han and said, "Assistant Han, I can't tell, you're so old-fashioned, but you still have a talent for acting." Han replied, "Thank you for the compliment. But their data is really problematic, there are many loopholes." Mrs. Huo smilingly said, Look, here you go again, is your brain full of data tables?" Han continued to blabber, "No, but I've been building my own memory since." When she arrives at home, Mrs. Huo holding a pen drive in her hand said to Mr. Huo, "Easy to get it." Mr. Huo replied, "My wife is amazing." Jingzan suddenly barged in and said, "Someone is making rumors about my sister-in-law on the internet." Then showed an article on his phone. The article had a picture of Master Yuan and Mrs. Huo together, and it stated that the only reason Huo Shaing became a master's student was because Ruan is the wife of Huo Chen. There were more allegations like Mrs. Huo seducing several men, she has a violent tendency and beat up her family members, and she is a street fighter. People were commenting on women with no talent and virtue like this, how can she become a public figure? And many bitter things. Jingzan angrily said, "Sister-in-law, they slandered you, this cannot be tolerated. How about getting a hacker to lure them out and give them a good beating? Or should we just send them a warning letter and make them pay until there is not a single bitter tea seed left?" Mr. Huo calmly said, "That's enough. Public opinion is a war without gunpowder, not a game of play." Mrs. Huo, while petting Jing's head, said, I know you are worried about me. Don't worry, nothing will happen. The things are not true, but they worked so hard to make it look like a real thing. Then suddenly someone barged into their mansion. He was Hangsing father. Ruan Haning slammed the door and entered the house with Cheng Yi and screamed, Ruan Haning. Look at the good deeds you have done. You have completely. While Cheng Yi is trying to stop her father, Mrs. Huo shouted, Ruan Haning. If you want to go crazy, don't do it in front of me. You don't have the right to judge my grandma. If I say anything bad about her again, don't blame me for being rude. Ruan shouted back, am I wrong here? Having a daughter like you is a disgrace to me. Your sister was kind enough to persuade you, and you dare to spill her wine. I regret I didn't strangle you when your mom gave birth to you. Mrs. Huo picked up a glass of water and spilled the water on Ruan's face. Mrs. Huo said, it's you and your family that I am spilling, you psycho. Cheng Yi tried to stop her father and told him to calm down as Mr. Huo is here. But Ruan said to Mr. Huo, you are also here. I am not strict in teaching my daughter. This kind of scandal has happened. It is really a shame for the Huo family. If Mr. Huo wants to deal with that rebellious girl, we, the Ruan family, will not say anything. Mr. Huo said, the Ruan family is indeed not strict in teaching their daughters. Fortunately, my wife did not raise by Mr. Ruan for even a day, so she can grow into what she is today. Otherwise, I will have to settle my score with the Ruan family. My wife is now my Huo family member. No one can point at the Huo family's nose and scold them. Raising a child but untaught. Since Mr. Ruan never paid attention to my wife in the past 20 years, then there is no need for Mr. Ruan to appear again in future. Otherwise, don't blame me for covering up the shortcomings, and I must seek an explanation for my wife. Cheng Yi said, Mr. Huo, father is too angry today. He was also afraid that bad words on the internet will cause harm to Mr. Huo. My father did that for the sake of the Huo family. Mr. Huo replied, all right, stop talking, Huo Jingzan, send the guests out. Jingzan kicked them out and told them to never come back and said, what a dog can come barking twice. Mrs. Huo giggled. Jingzan asked, sister-in-law, are you becoming silly after being pissed off? Mrs. Huo replied, I just didn't expect that Mr. Huo would also be so angry. Mr. Huo said, how can I see my wife being wronged? You take Jingzan to rest first and leave the rest to me. Mrs. Huo replied, it's okay, Mr. Huo, I can handle it myself. Jingzan ran upstairs, Mrs. Huo following him and saying, slow down and don't fall, I'll check your homework later. Mr. Huo thought, are money and shares still not enough for them? They seem to be getting more and more unscrupulous. Buzz buzz. Mr. Huo's phone started ringing. The speaker said, Mr. Huo, the specialist we are working with is returning tomorrow, so you can prepare for your follow-up appointment. He then replied, okay, thank you, hung up and said, good, now we can start the counterattack. Mrs. Huo posted a lawyer letter with the caption, we will pursue rumor mongers to the end. People started going crazy over it. Soon City West Street Public Security Bureau posted about the arrest of Li and Yu as the head of the fighters, and thanked Ms. Ruan for contribution. Xiaobai did not have too close contact with Ruan Haning, and at that time Mr. Huo Chen was also present. Zhang Xiaoyang was the one who took the initiative to pester Ruan Haning, and Ruan Haning was very indifferent to him. Assistant Han was there too but got ignored. Mr. Huo, Madam has finished solving the problem herself, said the assistant. Mr. Huo thought, as expected of my wife, she really surprises me with everything. It looks like I have to go for the operation as soon as possible. Mr. Huo told the assistant, tell Madam that there's a tricky merger in the overseas branch and that I need to be there for a while. Mr. Huo told the assistant that he will be leaving tomorrow. Meanwhile at the office, Cheng Yuan entered the house drunk with his eldest nephew. Cheng Yuan said, eldest nephew, and don't you dare disobey. Mrs. Huo came today, saying that she wanted to inspect the company, while the nephew was thinking, what a drunker, he muttered. Chang continues, she was just sitting in this place and playing with the computer. If I hadn't bluffed her, we wouldn't be able to have a cash cow. The nephew panicked. Ruan Haning actually came. Could it be? Goes to the computer and checks. Uncle, isn't anyone keeping an eye on Ruan Haning? She copied all confidential documents. Chang exclaims, what? She was playing Minesweeper. Eldest nephew replies, how stupid can Huo Chen's wife be? You even asked her to come to the company for inspection. What's the difference between giving her the evidence directly? Chang Yuan asked what to do. Eldest nephew replied, dead people can't talk. Mrs. Huo was walking while talking with Han on the phone. Han said, Madam, I also saw in the information that the Cheng family used nightclubs to launder money. Do I need to contact the police? Mrs. Huo replied, the Cheng family is quite courageous. You sort out the information and send it to the police secretly. Don't leak the information to the public. While wondering if Mr. Huo is busy today, he said he is on a trip. Mrs. Huo noticed two suspicious men and thought, looks like someone can't hold it anymore. Then I will see what you guys are planning to do. The men used chloroform and Mrs. Huo fainted. Mrs. Huo woke up in a club, her hands tied and figured it was a nightclub used by the Cheng family to launder money. Mrs. Huo kicks the table. Third brother enters the room and says, well, you're quite calm. And orders the goon to go tell the boss that she is awake. Someone then enters the room. Hai Tang, a nightclub escort, enters the room and asks, who's this? Another newcomer. The third brother replies, it's none of your business, don't ask. This was what the boss ordered to bring her back. Hai Tang asked, oh, you're so beautiful. No wonder our third brother has to watch you in person. Is it? She is still not well taught. Shall I go over and persuade her? Third brother replied, you are kind, but she might not necessarily appreciate it. Hai Tang said to Mrs. Huo, sister, don't be afraid, as long as you are obedient, you will be fine, our boss is still very righteous. Mrs. Huo asked, obedient? How to be obedient? As obedient as you. Hai Tang replied, the girls who came here were always crying and looking for death for a while. It's good that you are like this. This is our fate, and we have to accept our fate. Only by being obedient, we'll suffer less. Mrs. Huo replied, I never accept fate. If I had accepted my fate, I should have died long ago. Hai Tang was startled. Really? Then you will have to suffer, said Hai Tang while secretly cutting the rope that tied Mrs. Huo's hands. Third brother said to Hai Tang, okay, you have seen her. Don't stay here. Hurry up and get ready to pick up the guests. Hai Tang complies and leaves while Mrs. Huo realizes that she was untied. Mrs. Huo asks her, wait a minute, what's your name? Hai Tang, she replies thinking, you shouldn't belong here, you must escape. Third brother calls her a cheap thing while she leaves. 30 minutes later, boss enters the room and said, Mrs. Huo, how are you doing? Mrs. Huo counters, why did boss son bring me here for? Boss son replies, I was supposed to be at peace with Mrs. Huo. Mrs. Huo not only touched my men, and stole something important from a friend of mine. The old grudges and new grudges were added up together. I had to, please, Mrs. Huo to come over to talk. I think Mrs. Huo can understand my hardship. Mrs. Huo replied, this is what boss son said, please. Boss said, I only have some little tricks. I have to trouble Mrs. Huo to help entertain my brothers. I think Mrs. Huo will cooperate, right? Hey, exclaimed Mrs. Huo and said, cooperate with you. While her hands got free. Mrs. Huo picked up a bottle and smashed it on a goon. How did she break free? Catch her, shouted the boss son. Bitch, go to hell, said third brother. Mrs. Huo shouted angrily, I think you're the one who's waiting to die. Then attacked another goon. The third brother said, dare to resist. I need to teach you a lesson. Mrs. Huo picked a plank and slashed towards the third brother. A goon came screaming, boss, the police are here. Boss son ordered, old two, we go first. Old third, hurry up. You leave first, I'll be there, said the third brother. Mrs. Huo screamed, don't go. You better take care of yourself first. Threatened the third brother. Sister-in-law, I'll help you. How dare you bully my sister-in-law? Go to hell, shouted Jing Zan while swinging the stick at the brother. But the brother punches Jing in the face. Jing thought, damn, if they say it out, I will be laughed at by others for a whole year. Brother said to Jing, a kid who doesn't even have full hair, how dare he imitate others to be a hero? Bang! Mrs. Hu hits the brother with a stick and says, who told you to touch my brother? Jing Zan talked to himself, sister-in-law is so cool. From now on, I better not mess with my sister-in-law. Mrs. Huo said, Jing Zan, don't move, I'll call an ambulance. Jing replied, I'm fine sister-in-law, go chase that person first. I called my brothers just now, and they will come to rescue me right away. Alright, said Mrs. Huo thinking, the Hu family's children are really more sensible than one another. Boss Sun and his second brother were running when Mrs. Huo appeared in front of them with a stick. Boss Sun said, today I'm unable to identify a person of great ability and offended you. Now my venue was destroyed, so it's even. Do you have to be ruthless like this? Mrs. Huo replied, the things you have done have caused many people to lose their families, many girls to fall into the abyss, and now your men are hurting my brother. Boss Sun, you should also pay the price for what you have done. Boss Sun smirked and said, paying the price. Then look what this is. Those were Hai Tang's earrings. What did you do to Hai Tang? Asked Mrs. Huo. Sneakily the other brother stabbed Mrs. Huo's shoulder. Boss Sun said, I just taught her a lesson. Ha 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 Ruan Haning, if you hadn't married Huo Chen, I would have let you appear in my private room, ha 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 ha. A spent force, said Mrs. Huo. Boss Sun slashed his knife towards Mrs. Huo screaming, Ruan Haning, you will die here. Mrs. Huo dodged the attack and hit the Boss Sun back with a stick, making him unconscious saying, because it's you who deserves to die. It hurts, said Mrs. Huo and started fainted. I wonder what Mr. Huo is doing now, wondered Mrs. Huo. Just before Mrs. Huo fainted, she saw Mr. Huo coming towards her, shouting her name. She wondered, why did I see Mr. Am I missing him so much? Then the scene shifts to the hospital, where Mrs. Huo was hospitalized. She was in a hospital with Mr. Huo and an officer. Mr. Huo is facing difficulty peeling an apple. The officer asked Mrs. Huo, does Mrs. Huo still have any memory of the last incident? Mrs. Huo replies, that Boss Sun drew a knife and tried to get away with it. Mrs. Huo told everything to the officer. The officer said, okay, we understand the situation, there is nothing else, we will leave first. Mrs. Huo said, please wait a moment. I also want to ask, did you rescue a girl named Hai Tang last night? That girl is about 20 years old, about as tall as you, and very pretty. The officer said, Hai Tang. Let me check. Meanwhile, Mr. Huo finally peeled the apple and asked Mrs. Huo to eat it. Mrs. Huo said, did you not find her? Forget it. Mrs. Huo thought, she is so smart, she may have taken advantage of the chaos to run away. Found it, said the officer. Continuing said, Mrs. Huo, condolences, Miss Hai Tang died. The apple falls from Mrs. Huo's hand. Died, she exclaimed and thought, Boss Sun is really ruthless. I broke free, even though he wasn't sure if it was Hai Tang who was playing tricks, but as the only person who had ever come close to me, he still would rather kill her by mistake than let her go. Hai Tang herself is in a swamp of despair, but she is still willing to take the risk to give me hope to escape. Mrs. Huo was clenching her fists but Mr. Huo held her hand and tried to calm her down. Mrs. Huo said, I'm so sad, so powerless, I should have killed Boss Sun. The death of Hai Tang seems to have broken a hole in my heart, and the wind keeps blowing and blowing. The blowing made me feel empty like it emptied my whole body. Mr. Huo replied, if you feel empty in your heart, then I will help you fill it up. Although you didn't save Hai Tang, we can prevent other girls from going the way of Hai Tang. We can set up a charity fund dedicated to helping girls in trouble. We can also put some of the profits from the previous investments into this. Just right, you can get the investors who were cheated by Auntie Huo's company to invest with you. Ask them to donate part of the money they earn to the foundation. Mrs. Huo softly said. Mr. Huo. Mr. Huo asked, What's wrong? Mrs. Huo replied, thank you and I'm going to kiss you. Mrs. Huo was thinking, thank you, Mr. Huo, for always putting yourself in my shoes and supporting me in everything I want to do. You really fascinate me, while kissing Mr. Huo. Bam! Entered Jing Zan with fruits in his hand. Brother, sister-in-law, I am here, said Jing. Jing saw them kissing and got flustered. No, I don't see anything, he said. Mr. Huo said, you saved your sister-in-law's life this time, you have the credit. While Mrs. Huo was thinking, we've been seen. Mr. and Mrs. Huo reached home with Jing. Mrs. Huo said, Mr. Huo, in a few days I would like to go to school again, to expand my knowledge and horizons. Let's invest in a school after we set up the foundation so that not only me but also more children who drop out of school involuntarily can get a better education. Mr. Huo replied, all right, just do what Mrs. says. Jing asked, can you give me some money to open a nightclub? But Mrs. Huo replied, do your homework, and Mr. Huo said, dream on. They were welcomed by a small bud produced by an orchid plant. Both Mrs. Huo and Jing went to see it. Mr. Huo thought, sometimes my wife is like a child. An assistant came and said, Mister, I found it, Mr. Huo. Mr. Huo replied, how is it? The assistant replied, Boss Sun said that Cheng Yuan contacted him and ordered him to kill Madam. Also, Cheng Min and Cheng Yuan went in and out of that shell company together the night before yesterday. Well, Cheng Min, you are getting more and more bold and confused about what to do and what not to do, thought Mr. Huo. Mr. Huo ordered, you go to contact the Jiyu family and tell old Master Jiyu that the orchids have been saved. Next week, the Huo family will hold a flower viewing banquet and sincerely invite the Jiyu family. The assistant replied, yes. Mr. Huo's post-operative diagnosis and treatment results came out, and all indicators returned to normal, and Dr. Jiyu said there was no problem with full recovery. Shall I tell Madam? Mr. Huo replied, certainly. Mr. Huo wondered, will she be happy after I tell her? Will she let me give her a princess hug? Mrs. Huo told Mr. Huo, old Master Jiyu called just now, and he wants to come to our house to see the orchids in 2 days. Mr. Huo replied, no problem, then I will trouble Mrs. to prepare the flower banquet. Mr. Huo ordered the assistant, you can invite people from both families, but Chang Mail is not invited this time. Mrs. Huo asked, what? Is there a move coming up, Mr. Huo replied, the shareholders meeting is coming up, and some of the old shareholders are already getting restless. Cheng Min will definitely take the opportunity to move me down. I want to take advantage of this opportunity to reach cooperation with the Jiyu family. Mrs. Huo replied, I will fully support Mr. Huo said, by the way, Mrs., there is one more thing. Sister-in-law, come quickly, the condition of the orchid seems to be not very good. Said Jing. Mrs. Huo exclaimed, what? I am on my way. Mr. Huo tried to tell Mrs. Huo that his legs were healed, but she ran off, saying, I'm going to check it out, I'll talk to you later. There was nothing wrong with the orchid. Mrs. Huo started preparations. Mrs. Huo told the chef, old Master Jiyu prefers sweet food, so these dishes need to be carefully prepared. Mrs. Huo gave orders. Qian, you go contact the people on the list and give them invitations. Xiaoning, you choose some of your best piano songs. Chenglin, tomorrow you go pick up the flower arrangement I ordered from the flower shop. As for Jingzan, you just stay at home obediently. Jingzan said, sister-in-law, you're blankly expressing your distrust of me. I want to protest. Meanwhile, Mr. Huo was still trying to talk about his legs. Mrs. Huo asked, what's wrong with your leg? Does it hurt again? I will take you to Dr. Jiyu after I finish my work. Mr. Huo got jealous of the orchid flower as his wife's attention was on the flower. Chang Lin was returning home with flowers and appreciating his sister-in-law's choice. Chang Lin, why didn't you visit me this time? Asked Yi Tong, Chang Lin's mother. Chang Lin countered, what do you want to see me for? Yi Tong replied, I heard that recently your family is planning to host a flower viewing banquet for Old Master Jiyu. And since you are also celebrating your birthday, Mom wants to stay with you for a few days. Chang Lin thought, I am sure it's the same thing again, and said, Mom, did you remember my birthday wrong? Yi Tong replied, am I remembering wrong? But I heard that you have a lot of investors for the flower banquet. Would you like to take your mom with you? Chang Lin, after feeling the true care and love of his sister-in-law, his mother's contrived concern has become so unsightly. He said, Mom really did remember wrong, so Mom just wants to use me to take you to the flower banquet. I am not going to say yes. His mother got pissed and pounced some flowers and said, Huo Cheng Lin. You've gotten tough, haven't you? You dare to disobey me now, don't you? Cheng Lin replied, if I don't listen to you, what will Mom do? Locking me up in a dark room like when I was a child. Even if I cried until I couldn't make a sound, you didn't care. I am not going to say yes. I am going home. Bye. Yi Tong shouted, Huo Cheng Lin. If you dare to leave today, don't like me as your mother again. He replied, well, I wouldn't recognize you. Cheng Lin returned to the house. Mrs. Huo said, Cheng Lin, you're back. Cheng was looking really down. Mrs. Huo asked, Cheng Lin, what happened? Cheng Lin replied, it's nothing, just something happened. I will buy new flowers again. I will go in first, sister-in-law. No, something must have happened, thought Mrs. Huo. Jing Zan said, probably he ran into his unlucky mother again. Mrs. Huo asked, has he ever been like this before? Jing replied, that's what he looked like when he met his mother. His mother always tricked him. Huo Cheng Lin is also stubborn, he still wants to get motherly love from his mother. How could his mother really love him when all she did was for men and money? When I am done with my work, I have to check out Cheng Lin's real mother, so she can't have a bad influence on him, thought Mrs. Huo. Mrs. Huo heard a little rustle. Who is that? She wondered. Mrs. Huo threw a shovel in that direction. Jing shouted, sister-in-law. What's wrong? Jing saw Yi Tong Tong. Jing asked, Yi Tong Tong. What are you doing here? Yi Tong Tong replied, I'm not doing anything, I just came to have a look. Mrs. Huo wondered, is this Cheng Lin's biological mother? The story. Yi Tong Tong said, I am going to die. Why did you hit me so hard? It hurts so much. While thinking, I have not heard that this Mrs. Huo is so strong. If Cheng Min's mother hadn't said she would pay me for breaking a purple double-bud orchid, I wouldn't have come. Cheng Lin asked, what are you doing here? Yi Tong Tong replied, Huo Cheng Lin. What am I here for? Of course I am here to see my precious son, who ran away without a word. You think you are interrogating a prisoner. I am your mother. Is that how you talk to me? While thinking, so many flowers, which one is it? Mrs. Huo asked, how did you get in? What are you doing in the greenhouse? While thinking, there is something wrong with her. Yi Tong Tong replied, I am lost, can't I? A broken greenhouse, there is nothing to see. Yi Tong Tong tried to see what they were doing, and Mrs. Huo Cheng and Jing tried to stop her. Cheng Lin said, since there is nothing to see, just hurry up and leave. If you are short of money, I can give you some. Do not delay my sister-in-law's business. Yi Tong Tong asked, it's just a few stinky flowers. Why are you talking to me like that? Cheng Lin pushed his mother, she fell down. Yi Tong Tong shouted, Huo Cheng Lin. Are you going to rebel? I just dropped 2 pots of orchids, and now you dare to push me, your own mother. Did you lead my son astray? I knew it, a slum fox. What kind of upbringing can you have? Bitch is bitch. Is the person who you married unable to satisfy you? Even my son, a minor child, you won't spare him. Shut up. Chang Lin burst into anger and jumped on his mother to attack her. Mrs. Huo tried to stop Chang Lin. He asked why she was trying to stop him and said, "My sister-in-law is obviously not the kind of person. Why does my mother think so dirty of anyone? Sister-in-law, did she really love me? She did everything for herself. Why do I have such a mother?" Mrs. Huo said, "Chang Lin, don't cry." Yi Tongtong shouted, "You little bastard, what are you mad about? You are just a dog that crawls in front of me begging for my motherly love. How dare you talk to me like that? It seems that you are still not getting enough lessons." Mrs. Huo slapped the mother and said, "Would you like to try again? Selfishly behaving a person like you is not worth being a mother at all." Yi Tongtong replied, "Don't tell me you are a noble, you married a cripple not for money but for love. Funny, are you a cripple fetish? It's just that you are lucky enough to become Mrs. Huo. You are no different from me." Mrs. Huo said, "Who gave you permission to say that about my husband?" While stepping on Yi Tongtong, Mr. Huo entered walking and said, "What kind of wild dog is this? How dare you bark at my wife? Yi Tongtong, who allowed you to come into the Huo family?" Yi Tongtong asked, "How come you can stand up now?" Mrs. Huo also said, "Huo Chen, your legs." Mr. Huo replied, "I wanted to tell you, but you have been so busy recently that I haven't had a chance. Someone pack Madame Yi's things and send her to Country C." Yi Tongtong said, "No, no, you can't do this. I was really just lost. Chang Lin, my good son, come here, come and kowtow to your brother and sister-in-law. Tell them to let me go for your sake." Chang Lin replied, "Did you ever think that I was your son before you said those words? Did you ever think that after you said those words, what would my situation be like in the Huo family? You have never thought about it, so why should I pay for the mistakes you made?" Yi Tongtong was going to say something, but noticed a pink flower behind and thought, "Wait, what is that? Is that the orchid?" and said, "I am having a hard time, so don't you guys think about having a good time. How can you explain to others that without this orchid, come to hell with me?" Yi Tongtong grabbed the flower and plucked it. Yi Tongtong threw the orchid and said, "Ha, your orchid is gone." "Gone," Mrs. Huo said, "How meaningless, it's ridiculous." Chang Lin said, "This isn't the double-petal Su Guan He Ding that you are looking for. My sister-in-law, Qian, is interested in orchid cultivation, so this was bought for her to practice the real orchid over there." Yi Tongtong said, "What? How can it look so ordinary?" Chang Lin said, "You're so stupid that you can't even tell what an orchid looks like, and you have the confidence to cause trouble for my sister-in-law. Longing for maternal love from stupid and evil women like you. I am such a fool." Yi Tongtong replied, "Huo Cheng, I am your mother." Cheng said to Mr. Huo, "Big brother, tell someone to take Mrs. Yi away." Mr. Huo agreed. Yi Tongtong said, "Huo Cheng Lin, I am your mother, you can't treat me like that." Yi Tongtong was carted away. Mrs. Huo said, "Well, things are settled. Someone should explain this, right? Didn't even tell their family about such a big thing as their leg treatment." During Mr. Huo's rehab time, he wondered, "Will I scare my wife if I appear standing in front of her straight standing up?" "I can only walk a few steps," said Mr. Huo. An assistant told Mr. Huo, "Sir, Changmin holds the shareholder meeting ahead of time." Mr. Huo said to Mrs. Huo, "It seems that Changmin couldn't wait any longer. It looks like I will be missing today's flower viewing banquet. Please enjoy it for me, my love. If they come to this side at the same time, I count on you to handle it." Mrs. Huo said, "Leave it to me, the explanation will be for when you are back." At Huo's family gate, Auntie arrived with Director Wang Zheng and Director Feng Chen. Auntie said, "Be dedicated today if you want the investment. You have to fight for it, understand?" "I understand," said Wang Zheng. Auntie wondered, what even is a flower banquet? Who would like those awful flowers? This so-called flower viewing banquet must be a cover for the cooperation between Chen Hangsing and the Gu family. Huo Chen probably has been called away, and the others, I can go and cheat her money before the GU family comes. Auntie enters the greenhouse and says, "Yo, why didn't you invite me to this flower viewing banquet? Are we still a family?" Auntie saw GU old man already there and wondered, why is the GU old man here so early? Mr. GU couldn't wait to see the orchid, so he arrived early. Mrs. Huo said, "I was afraid that Aunt Huo's investment company was too busy, so I didn't invite you. But then you are still here despite that, aren't you?" And thought, sure enough, the Chang family doesn't let go of this side. As soon as the shareholder meeting started, she was already here, and it looks like Changmin is sure to win this. Auntie said, "A few days ago I saw someone shovel away the ornamental plants in the green belt of the apartment complex and grow vegetables in it. Is this flower or glass planting similar to growing vegetables? Han Xing, don't tell me you are growing things like this." Mr. Gu clacks his cane and says, "Shallow. Is there still someone at this age who can't tell the difference between flowers and vegetables?" "How nonsense," Jing said, "with that shallow knowledge of yours, you should talk less when going out. The orchid cultivation experts are very popular. If they hear you, they will surely laugh at your face." Auntie replied, I just don't like to look into these things. There's no reason to argue with a junior like you. I am only here today to discuss investment matters, so I wonder if Mrs. Huo you can have a talk with me inside," thinking, I must get away from this old man. Mrs. Huo said, "It's possible, but it's enough to go here by yourself." "Why are you bringing these people?" Auntie replied, "The Huo Group holds the general meeting of shareholders. Of course, they want to get Huo Group investment to come here. Businessmen are very adaptive." Mrs. Huo said, "Is that so? It's not a good thing if the wind is too strong. Be careful or else you will be blown away before you can catch it." Mrs. Huo asked Jing to help me take care of Grandpa Gu. Auntie thought, an uncultured girl from the slum dares to be so arrogant. Just wait until the shareholders meeting ends. The Huo family will be done. Let me see what you are going to do then. All four of them entered the house. Wang Zheng said, as expected of a wealthy family, the decoration is really extraordinary. Auntie said, "We haven't said anything, and you already started to solicit investment. How impatient." Wang Zheng replied, "Investment in me will at least pay off." Mrs. Huo asked, "Who is the person next to you?" Wang replied, "An old classmate of mine who is obsessed with literary and artistic films, asking for money but having too many requirements and there no return on investment in the end." Fang Chen replied, "Wang Zheng, we both study art. We can't let money control us. Relying on such things to make trashy movies that are tarnishing the movie market and destroying the future of the Chinese film industry." Wang Zheng replied, "Trashy movies. Stop talking about principles. I am now the famous director of Xingshu Entertainment. The movies I made were always sold out. What about you?" Feng replied, If you don't want to listen, I won't talk anymore. Why are you humiliating me like this?" Mrs. Huo thought, Xingshu Entertainment. Isn't this the unscrupulous company that oppressed Shenai in her previous life with a horrible working style, using a contract full of traps to manipulate late young people who have just entered the showbiz business? Many of its artists have had to struggle in the abyss and fall into despair. "Well, I get to meet you today." Wang said, "Humiliate. Deliberate bullying is humiliation. I am just telling the truth." "Is it humiliation? You should look at yourself. No one puts a dime in for you." Mrs. Huo said, I will invest in your movie." Hearing this, everyone in the room was shocked. Fang Chen said, "Mrs. Huo, my script is a literary film." Mrs. Huo, do you bring your script? Let me see. Feng replied, "Yes, please take a look, but because of the shooting scenes and my personal requirements, the initial investment is huge," while giving the script. Mrs. Huo, while reading the script, thought, even if he is short on money, Feng Chen isn't so wicked as to destroy a naive little girl. Despite having been met with a desperate situation like this, he can still maintain such candor. Candor script is also very good and very interesting. Wang Zheng said, "Mrs. Huo, you are still young, and you don't know much about this entertainment industry. Our entertainment is the best in this aspect, so instead of wasting money for nothing, why not invest in our urban love drama? The cost isn't high, but it will be high in popularity. Mrs. Huo replied, "Are you teaching me how to do my job?" Anti-interfering, Director Wang is an expert, you should listen to what the expert says. How can these literary films make more money than the romantic genre? When it comes to investing, you have to watch how others do it. Wang Zheng's startup capital is not enough, more investment needs to be made or else all my money will be lost. Mrs. Huo said, "I was born a rebellious person. I don't like watching other people's ways. I prefer swimming against the current, thinking, the content of the script involves local customs. In order to get the best result, it is necessary to go to various places for shooting, which increases the cost. At first glance, it does demand a huge investment, but in fact, it is not unreasonable. This is the minimum number required after careful consideration. Nowadays, the market is full of love dramas where the starred actors are staring and pouting, which are mainly shoddy dramas with horrible details within the stories. I haven't seen this movie in my previous life, it's really ended after several failures." Mrs. Huo said, "I invest in this drama. 60 million investment." Feng replied, "Thank you, Mrs. Huo." Wang shouted, "Literary and artistic films are not well received, not to mention they should be low cost," but Feng Chen just opened his mouth to ask for such an amount of money. "Isn't that greedy? Think about it carefully." Auntie replied, "What is the use of telling her this? She is a poor girl from the slums. What does she know about using money? However, Han Sheng, I advise you to save that money, otherwise, you won't be able to spend that much after today." Mrs. Huo asked, "What do you mean, Auntie?" Auntie replied, "What did I mean? After today's shareholders meeting, the Huo group will belong to my son, Cheng Min. Do you understand now?" Mrs. Huo replied, "Auntie is really as confident as when you invested in Dongjia, hem." Auntie asked, "What do you mean by that?" Mrs. Huo replied, "Let me tell you a secret, Mr. Huo's legs have been cured." Auntie was so shocked that the tea fell from her hand. Auntie said, "How is it possible? How could his leg be healed?" During the shareholders meeting, Zhao Yiping said, "Old, how can you throw the cup like that? Everyone can clearly see Mr. Cheng's contribution to the Huo group during this period. Mr. Cheng deserves to be made the president of the Huo group." Xu Chuan said, "The Huo group can see today is all Mr. Huo's hard work, and when Mr. Huo had an accident and has had to rest at home, you can't wait to seize the opportunity to take over control. Who do you think you are? Nothing but a dog raised by Cheng Min. You think you can talk to me like that?" Cheng Min slammed his hand to the table and said, "If he isn't worthy, am I enough?" Xu Chuan doesn't speak nonsense. Is it that if Huo Chen gets into an accident, the Huo group doesn't develop anymore? Tens of thousands of employees of the company don't need to eat anymore, is that it? Could it be that without Huo Chen, the earth would stop spinning? Zhao said, "Mr. Cheng is right, we are simply workers for salary, we are here to feed our family, not to do charity." Another employee said, "Yeah, the world's prosperity comes from profit, and its hustle and bustle is also for profit." Another one said, "We are all mortals here, so this is the best choice for the Huo group." Xu Chuan said, Do you want to be given by personal interest being ungrateful people? You all disappoint me." Cheng Min said, "Xu Chuan, I really don't understand what you are being stubborn about. Are you still waiting for Huo Chen to help you? Stop dreaming. Huo Chen is now disabled. Not only his legs but even his spirit is damaged, you can no longer stand up. Huo Chen's ruling age means that from now on the Huo group will be led by me to a greater height." Then suddenly a clapping sound can be heard, and Mr. Huo Chen enters. Everyone was completely shocked. Mr. Huo said, "Why don't you continue?" Cheng Min said, "Your legs healed. Impossible. Aren't you crippled? Aren't you supposed not to be able to stand up for the rest of your life? Isn't he disabled?" Zhao replied, "I don't know." Chang Min thought, it's over as long as Huo Chen stands up. As long as Huo Chen appears, even if he doesn't do anything, these cowardly shareholders will turn their back on me without hesitation. Damn it. Damn it. Mr. Huo said, it looks like Mr. Chang doesn't welcome me very much. Mr. Chang, please continue. Chang replied, congratulations on your recovery. Mr. Huo replied, no need, no need, please go on with the meeting, don't delay everyone's time because of me. Xu Chuan said, now that Mr. Huo has returned, of course, he should continue to lead the overall situation and guide the Huo group to new glories. Chang Min replied, not sure about that. This position is for capable people. Cousin, there is no family in the business warfare. Are you willing to compete with me? Whoever wins will be the president of the Huo group. Mr. Huo, what do you think? Mr. Huo replied, gladly. Meanwhile, in the Huo's house, Auntie stood up and said, are you kidding me? Hangsing said, Jingzan, come lead the great director of Xingshu Entertainment and Auntie Huo you, get out. Jingzan came with a broom and kicked them out, saying, get out, get out. How can any kind of person come to the Huo's house to bark loudly like this? Get the hell out. Fang Chen said, earlier, thank you, Mrs. Huo, for saving me. I won't take what you said just now to heart. I'm not that brave to hold on to other people's promises and force them to spend their money, but I still want to thank you. Mrs. Huo replied, who said I did that to save you? Until now, I have been arbitrarily spontaneous out of anger. Does this make me truly feel optimistic about your project and want to invest so? Do you want to reject it? Fang Chen said, you really want to invest? Mrs. Huo replied, I never joke, don't you want me to? Fang Chen continued, I do, of course, I want your investment. Thank you so much. If it doesn't matter if there's not enough money, we can cut down on our meals and clothes. Thank you. Fang Chen started crying. Mrs. Huo asked, what are you crying about? This is a happy thing. I won't take any pennies from you. I am not that stingy. Jingzan wondered, why is he crying? Was he beaten? Meanwhile in the Mr. Huo's office, Xu Chuan said, Mr. Huo, this time you want to invest in the development of Xicheng district in order to overthrow Chengmin. Mr. Huo replied, yes, Chengmin currently holds the capital investment of Dongcheng's development. But Dongcheng is already a rich and prosperous city, so the development will only cause a greater gap between the rich and the poor. Further, urban development should not only focus on one side. But what if Chengmin has already contacted the developer? Mr. Huo replied, now is the time for the investor to make a decision. What we have to do is come up with a plan and influence that decision. Alright, I will go home to arrange some things. Xu Chuan replied, okay, Mr. Huo, actions are so quick and resolute. While going home, Mr. Huo thought, I don't think if this is reliable, while looking at a book named 100 Ways to Confront Your Wife. Scene shifts to Mr. Huo's mansion. Mrs. Huo asked, we are going to the orphanage in a few days. Have you thought about what to give? Jingzan said, I want to give gifts to the children in that orphanage. Cheng Lin said, I can teach them how to draw. Jingzan mocked, can you? Cheng Lin stares at Jingzan. Mr. Huo is standing in the corner, thinking, she's been married to me for a few months, but the cold silence of the Huo family in the past seems to have been centuries ago. Jingzan said, by the way, sis, have you read today's news? Mrs. Huo asked, what news? Jingzan replied, that big bro was so mad at Chengmin to the point of standing up from his disability. While looking at Mr. Huo, Mrs. Huo said, I don't know if my husband is going to walk on his own or to sit in a wheelchair. Mr. Huo replied, please listen to me. I meant to surprise you. Mrs. Huo replied, surprised I was, but the happiness. Mr. Huo replied, you have been so busy these days, so I couldn't find a suitable time. I will massage your shoulder. Can you forgive me? Hangsing giggled. Mr. Huo asked, what are you laughing at? She replied, I'm laughing at the fact that Mr. Huo is really nice, and I'm having all of that to myself. He said, no, it's me who has you as my precious person. While thinking, I always remember that you were the one who lit up the hope in my life and forcefully dragged me out of the sludge of darkness. With your unquestionable determination, if it wasn't for you, there may be no Huo Chen in the world. Zhe said, my wife is so beautiful, anger doesn't look good on you, so be good and don't be angry anymore. She continued, Mr. Huo's legs just recovered, and your mouth has become much sweeter. Mr. Huo replied, why don't you try it yourself? Just how sweet it really is. Mr. and Mrs. Huo kissed each other passionately. Meanwhile, the orchid flower was having nice fun, but someone was staring that poor flower, fiercely. Jingzan entered the room, saying, I forgot my glass of water. I am here to take it. Mr. Huo flustered and said, you moron. Mrs. Huo thought, we got caught again. The next morning during breakfast, Mr. Huo fed Mrs. Huo, saying, Madam, eat this, it's delicious. The waiter thinking in back, Mr. Huo, if you continue to do this, we'll soon lose our jobs. Mrs. Huo said, oh, by the way, Mr. Huo, how was the shareholders meeting yesterday? I heard that the old town is going to be developed. While thinking, in my last life, thanks to this development plan of Dong Chang, the second son of the Jiyu family, who succeeded and stood at the top of several major consortiums this time, I must not let the Jiyu family seize this important opportunity. Mrs. Huo continued, regarding the development, which area do you prefer? Dongcheng district is more modernized, having links to various railways and highways, which constitute convenient transportation, making it easier to gain profit. Xicheng district has many ancient towns that are relatively more difficult to develop in comparison to Dongcheng. Mr. Huo replied, I am more optimistic about Xicheng. The combination of tradition and modernity is more distinctly unique, and it's about time we should improve the environment in Xicheng district. Mrs. Huo replied, but the stakes are a little too high. Mr. Huo replied, everything we do has risks. Besides, you grew up in Xicheng, so I hope you can see Xicheng district become more prosperous. Mrs. Huo thought, he is thinking for me, and said, okay, then I believe in you. In Gu's house, Mr. Ji Yu said, as I said, the Dongcheng district has more competitive advantages, so we should make more preparations to win it. Ji Yu Zhao, the second son of the Ji Yu family, said Xicheng is way too chaotic. The higher-ups are not fools, this is development and poverty alleviation. Ji Yu Ju, the third daughter of the Ji Yu family in Xicheng district, has a more profound historical heritage, and it's completely possible to develop into a nostalgic style. Xicheng also needs this opportunity to keep up with the development of other cities. Ji Yu Ju replied, you think you are doing a charity. You big brainless head women are too soft-hearted. Ji Yu Ju replied, Ji Yu Zhao. That's the result of my comprehensive consideration refutes. If you can, why would you attack my gender? Mr. Ji Yu said, enough, stop arguing. I asked you to come to convince me not to quarrel. Tomorrow I will ask my assistant to assign each of you to lead a team and see who will achieve success in this project, and that person will be the next successor of the Ji Yu group. Ji Yu Zhao replied, Grandpa, are you joking? An indecisive girl always worries about nothing like her. How can she lead a behemoth as the Ji Yu group to a more brilliant future? Ji Yu Ju replied, what? Are you questioning Grandpa's decision? Ji Yu Zhao said, just wait and see, dear sister. The orphanage Tian Shi Yuan. Kids of the Huo family think, this is that orphanage. Why is it so old? Has no one repaired it? The gap between the rich and the poor in Shijia is getting bigger. Can Mr. Huo really help Shijia with its development? Mrs. Huo said, you have to manage Tian Shi Yuan all these years. It must be a hard word for you. Shijia replied, the children are well behaved and sensible, just looking at them makes all the tiredness go away. Mrs. Huo said, the weather is getting cold. I would like to make an additional donation. This money here, Please use it to buy some thick clothes for the children and to repair these old buildings. Shijia said, thank you, Madam Ruan. Kids were waiting for the food to be cooked. 2 goons enter the orphanage, one of them holding a man's collar. The goon said, oh, why is it so lively today? You haven't paid the protection fee this month. When will you pay for it? He really wants to die. Another goon said, what? Forgot who is the boss of this area. The goon throws the man on the ground. Mrs. Huo said to the ma, be careful, then shouted at the goons, what are you doing? The goon replied, who the heck are you? How dare you bark on our territory? The other goon spoke, damn right, she looks like a newcomer, huh? Be obedient, get down on your knees, and call us boss, then we will consider letting this pass. Mrs. Huo replied, want me to kneel? Then let's see if you have the ability to make me. Mrs. Huo picked up a pan and hit one of the goons. The goon fell down. The goon said, big boss, that woman is. The other one spoke, screw her. I don't care, call the others the other. The other one said, that woman is the one who sent boss son in a while ago, Mrs. Huo. The goon was shocked. Mrs. Huo said, if you already know who I am, why don't you hurry out of here from now on? This orphanage is under my protection. Let me see who shall dare to come here and cause troubles in the future. The goons ran away, saying, I'm sorry, we are blind to have bumped into Mrs. Huo, we're out of here. The man whom the goons left got up and said, are you Mrs. Huo? Mrs. Huo replied, yes, while thinking, who is he? Visiting the orphanage. The man said, I heard that Mrs. Huo grew up in Xicheng district. You must know this place well, right? Mrs. Huo replied, yes, but I grew up in the Huo gang a little away from here, where it's messier and poorer. Would you like a bowl of dumplings? The city is developing, and Shijia will soon become better. The man said, this urban development, the Huo, appears to put more emphasis on the Xicheng district, right? But it's difficult to make this area thrive. Mrs. Huo thought, this person seems to know a lot about urban development. Who is he? The man gave his business card to Mrs. Huo and said, this is my business card. I hope Mrs. Huo can share your ideas with me. I am very interested in the development of Xi district. Mrs. Huo thought, Zhao Jinping. It's that famous Professor Zhao. Mrs. Huo remembers her previous life. Zhang Xiaoyang said, a smelly old professor like Zhao Jinping dares to dream about participating in the development of the urban area and the Xicheng area, no less. What does he know? At present Mrs. Huo thought, in my previous life, Zhang Xiaoyang also wanted to get a share of an urban development project, so he enlisted himself with Ji Yu Zhao. A few times after he returned from the wine bureau, he cursed and complained about how hateful the people who wanted to develop the Xicheng district were among them. The name of Professor Zhao appeared at the highest frequency. Professor Zhao devoted a lot of effort to the planning of the Xicheng district and even shook the higher-ups' thinking several times. Unfortunately, in the capital gain moves, the disadvantages of Xicheng district kept being magnified infinitely, and the professor failed in the end. This urban development project is an important mark for Ji Yu Zhao, the second son of the Ji Yu family, to take off in his career. It can be said that without this project's success, Ji Yu Zhao would not be able to grasp the Ji Yu group so quickly and suppress it so frantically. I have to take this opportunity. Zhao Jinping said, the economy in Xicheng is in a downturn, there is really no advantage at all. Mrs. Huo replied, even though Dongcheng has all the advantages, Xicheng is an ancient city with a profound cultural heritage. There are many structures from the past, and the combination of modern and historic features may not be a bad thing but a breakthrough. Zhao Jinping replied, that's right, if the changes of the city can be documented, it would be nice. She thought, documenting the city's changes. Mrs. Huo and others left the orphanage. At Mr. Huo's house, Mr. and Mrs. Huo in an office. Mrs. Huo thought, documenting the changes isn't a bad idea. It can be used to promote Xicheng district. In this way, Xicheng will be more widely understood. Mr. Huo asked. What are you looking at, smiling happily like that? Mrs. Huo replied, I met a professor today who has a lot of ideas about the development of Xicheng. I think we can make a set of documentaries of the Xicheng district and use them for promoting Xicheng. Mr. Huo replied, we can focus on ancient structures and local customs, which will attract viewers. Mrs. Huo said, it just so happens that I have been investing in a director. I can ask him to shoot. If the documentary becomes popular, he can rise more in popularity. Mr. Huo said, at the time, you can also do a press conference to promote the movie and the documentary. Mrs. Huo replied, sure enough, a businessman's brain is more the most useful. Mr. Huo said, Love. Jing Zan was standing outside, wondering if he should go in and thinking, if I go in and see something I shouldn't, I will be dead. At the cafe, Mrs. Huo with Feng Chen. Feng Chen said, Mrs. Ruan, you suddenly came to find me like this. Is it because the investment amount I requested is too large? Mrs. Huo replied, don't be so nervous. I won't withdraw capital, so rest assured. I am here today for other things. You must have heard about the development of the Dongcheng and Xicheng districts. The Huo group is more inclined to develop Xicheng, so I need you to make a documentary about the people, the cultural landscapes, and the ancient structures of the Xicheng district. I will jointly promote your new movie with this documentary at a press conference. Feng Chen replied, okay. Sure. Thank you, Mrs. Ruan. Mrs. Huo said, one more thing regarding the casting of the lead role for the movie, have you chosen anyone? Feng Chen asked. Mrs. Ruan, do you want to make a suggestion? Mrs. Huo replied, I want to auction off some things during the press conference, including the audition slot for the lead role of this movie. Feng Chen stood up and said, Mrs. Ruan, once the capital participates in the content production, the content quality will be greatly reduced at the beginning. You choose to invest in my work because of the quality of my script. The protagonist is the most important thing in a film, so forgive me when I can't agree with this. She said, I will invest another 100 million. Feng Chen replied, what 100 million, Mrs. Ruan, please go find another person. I think our values are not quite compatible. The film has entered the preparatory stage, and it has cost you quite a lot of money. I have nothing to reimburse you. I will give you the first version of this movie's script. You can find another director to take over this. She replied, Director Feng, you are being too hasty. Once I invested in you, I won't look for any other director. I am just auctioning the audition slots. I will definitely not interfere in the final casting, and all of the proceeds from the auction will be used for the preparation of Xicheng's development and for the production of the movie. You must have known about the recent urban development, and you have photographed a lot of local regions. Surely you have seen those old houses, winding alleys, and hungry children in Xicheng. Right, if the Xicheng district cannot keep up with this development, it may become a real slum. Feng Chen thought, it's true, Xicheng can no longer keep up with the pace of the world. If it can really help Xijia, in the worst case, I can cut off the protagonist role and try not to let it delay the movie, and said, Mrs. Ruan, I accept. I will help you, but please be sure to make it a success. Mrs. Huo replied, certainly, thinking, this time I must highlight the characteristics of Xicheng district. Meanwhile, Mr. Huo and other siblings visited the orphanage and children were being mischief. Next day, MS News started posting about Hangsing. Top 1 trending news. Mrs. Huo generously throws 160 million. Top 2 trending news. Ruan Haning x Feng Chen 2.602 million. Top 3 trending news. A Xicheng district is different from memory. Feng Chen posted a documentary with the caption, bringing you a new shooting work of mine, I hope you like it. People were impressed by it. MS News posted, a new movie, Ruan Haning x Feng Chen, the opportunity to audition for the leading role will be conducted by auction. Ruan Haning posted, for this casting, in addition to the auction, we also open a registration link for you to send your videos to the organizers. Shoot a video showing your expressiveness and send it to us. Fang Chen posted, "We will hold an auction press conference and inside casting in a week, please don't miss it." In Mr. Huo's house, Mrs. Huo thought, "Looks like a success. I hope nothing bad happens." Shen Nai's social account. Let's check. It seems that she lives well at this point in time. She hasn't entered the entertainment industry just yet. That's good. Living an ordinary life is happier than anything else. Shen Nai's house. Shen Nai muttered, "I want to become an actor." She found the posts online. She thought, Han Xing invested in movies. Still casting, I have to give it a try. If I succeed, I will be able to meet Han Xing at any time, won't I? Meanwhile at work, Mrs. Huo, talking to workers, said, "Pay more attention to these." Mr. Huo asked, "Are you still busy?" She replied, "Yes, doing final confirmation." She noticed a small box in Mr. Huo's hand. She asked Mr. Huo, "What's in that box?" Mr. Huo replied, "Just a little something." He opened the box and said, "My love, take all of these with you to the auction since it's an auction. The more items there are, the better." She replied, "I remember this watch as your favorite." He said, "To support my wife's entrepreneurship, I can give away these many good things." She replied, "Mr. Huo, thank you. Let's go. The conference is about to start." Conference's front stage. Anchor announced, "Please welcome Mr. and Mrs. Huo." Mr. and Mrs. Huo get on stage. Mrs. Huo said, "Thank you very much for your presence here. I hope you can get your favorite object." Mr. Huo takes off his blazer, puts it around Mrs. Huo and says, "The air is quite cold. Please keep warm, love." Mrs. Huo replied, "Thank you, Mr. Huo." Mr. Wu said, "The heaters in this venue are all turned on." Mr. Huo's excuse is so clumsy. Ji Yuzhou said, "Why does Mr. Wu have to expose him like that?" But Mrs. Huo also isn't weak or as delicate as a daughter. President Huo's old-fashioned thinking needs to be changed. Quote, Mr. Wu said, "That's right, if Mrs. Huo were my wife, she could wear whatever she wanted and do whatever." Mr. Huo said, "It's been a while, Mr. Wu hasn't shown up, and he's still talkative. My wife is obviously not a daughter, but no matter how independent or talented she is, I feel from my heart that she should always be loved and cared for. You both aren't married, so it's probably impossible to understand that feeling." Mrs. Huo thought, "Is this men's competitiveness?" Mr. Wu's pride was wounded. Mr. Huo got off the stage, and Feng Chen got on the stage. Feng Chen said, "Welcome everyone to the press conference of the movie Xuanzhao. I am the director of this movie, Feng Chen, and this is my investor, Mrs. Ruan Haning. This movie is adapted and created based on the background of Xicheng district. During the creation of the scenes, I and Mrs. Huo discovered another side of Xicheng, which is its ancient charm." Someone from the audience laughed and spoke, "Xicheng, ancient charm. Nana, Ji Yuzhou's lover, said, what does such a dilapidated place like Xicheng have? Are there even any good people? Ancient charm, you say? I think it's just a lump of mud." Ji Yuzhou said, "Don't tell me Mrs. Huo's investment in this unknown director isn't just to promote Xicheng district but also to strive for developing Xicheng." Mrs. Huo replied, "I think these matters should be irrelevant to Gu's second young master, right?" Nana said, "Irrelevant. Our young master wants to develop Dongcheng. Now that you want to develop Xicheng, it means you are opposing Gu's second young master. Moreover, Xicheng is dirty, messy, and horrible. There are people without awareness, which is incomparable with Dongcheng." Mrs. Huo replied, "Because of people like you, the gap between the rich and the poor in the city is getting bigger and bigger, making many people work a road against their will." Nana said, "Why can't I tell that truth? Xicheng is just a slum. No matter how well it is packed, its essence is already rotten. Garbage people, garbage city, wherever they are placed, they still are garbage." Mrs. Huo slapped Nana and said, "I think it's your essence being rotten." Nana said, "You. I'm Gu's second master's woman. How dare you hit me?" Mrs. Huo, while grabbing Nana's hair, said, "I don't care whose woman you are, but I don't like you, so I slap your face like that." Ji Yu Zhao said, "Madam, it would be too disrespectful of you to hit people." Mrs. Huo leaves Nana's hair and says, "Respect. You are just the second son of the Ji Yu family. Even if you want to inherit the Ji Yu, there's still Ji Yu Zhou before you, and me, the wife of the person in charge of the Huo group. Why should I respect you?" Ji Yu Zhao replied, "Mrs. Huo, Ruan Haning, who gave you such courage like that?" Mr. Huo replied, "I did. Ji Yu second young, is this really arrogant? Is this Ji Yu family's education? It seems that I need to spend some time chatting with the senior Ji Yu." Ji Yu Zhao replied, "Fine, I'll remember this. Just you wait." While thinking, "I have to quickly obtain control over the Ji Yu group. When I get in control, I will see who dares to stand against me." Mrs. Huo continued the conference. "So sorry for the hiccups, dear guests, but thanks to that I found a problem. Everyone's prejudice against the people of Xicheng district. Xicheng district is like an old man who can't keep up with the pace of time, but once we slow down just a bit, stop for just a while, and we will see his beauty." Feng Chen said, "Exactly, the upcoming movie Xuan Zhao will also show you a more real and beautiful Xicheng. Taking this opportunity, I would like to offer up the chance for you to be cast as the protagonist of the film in the form of an auction. People in the audience think the casting slot is being auditioned. Don't be ridiculous. 160 million are invested in this movie. If the auction is successful, then we'll have the chance to cooperate with Huo Group. It's more difficult than going to heaven if you want to work with Huo Group. This is such a good opportunity." Mrs. Huo said, "In addition, there are other items that will also be auctioned. All of the proceeds will be used for donations. Half of it will go to Director Feng's project and the other half for Xicheng. Once again, I hope you can get a hold of your favorite items." The auction begins. Mrs. Huo sat next to Mr. Huo. Mr. Huo said, "My wife has worked so hard." She replied, "This is all for Xicheng. If the Xicheng district can be developed, then everything I do is worth it." Feng Chen said, "Mrs. Huo has just introduced the first auction item, which is the opportunity to participate in the audition for Xuan Zhao's leading role, starting at 10,000. People started bidding. 100,000, 200,000, 500,000. Mr. Wu said, "What Mrs. Ruan said on stage touched me so deeply, so I'm willing to spend my fortune to help her, 1 billion. Ji Yu Zhou replied, 1.5 billion, I also think her speech is truly heartfelt. Mr. Wu said, "You tried to steal from me, 2 million. Don't tell me you were interested in her. What a dirty thought." Mr. Huo said, 5.2 billion, Wu Zheng, this is my wife. Ji Yu Zhou bided, 6 million. Mr. Huo bided, 8 million. Mr. Wu said, 10 billion. Mr. Wu, Mr. Huo, you are gentle on me. Ji Yu Zhou said, despicable. 18 billion, someone said from behind. Mrs. Huo wondered, who? She noticed it was Ji Yu Zhu. It's her, why is she here? The third daughter of the Ji Yu family, Ji Yu Zhu. She has an astonishing talent for business management. In my previous life, I heard that Senior Ji Yu also had the idea of letting her inherit the Ji Yu family's property. If I can cooperate with her to develop Xicheng district in this life, then surely Ji Yu Zhao won't sail as smoothly as he did in my previous life. Ji Yu Zhou thought, why is she here? Mr. Wu thought, damn it, who is snatching it from me? Ji Yu Zhou said, you don't have to look, that's my sister, she's not compatible with you. Mr. Wu said, your younger sister. Feng Chen started closing the deal, 18 billion going once, 18 billion going twice, 18 billion going thrice, 18 billion sold. The chance of audition was sold to Ji Yu Zhu. Feng Chen said, congratulations to the lady for having gotten an audition for the lead role in the movie Xuan Zhao. After the auction, Mrs. Huo, Ruan Haning, congratulates Ji Yuju on her winning bid and expresses gratitude for her donation to the Xicheng district. Ji Yuju reveals that she bid not to become the heroine but to discuss collaborating on the district's development. They move to a lounge area where Ji Yuju shares her plans. She comments on Mrs. Huo's composure and maturity, mentioning it would be great if Mrs. Huo were her sister-in-law, which Ji Yuju and Mr. Huo overhear. Ji Yuju and Mr. Huo join the conversation, with Ji Yuju dismissing the notion and Mr. Huo emphasizing his legal marriage to Mrs. Huo. Ji Yuju drags Ji Yuju out, and she bids farewell to Mrs. Huo. Afterwards, Mr. Huo expresses his fear of losing his wife, but Mrs. Huo reassures him of her love. They share a kiss, which is interrupted by Feng Chen. He inquires about the audition winner, and Mrs. Huo explains that Ji Yuju's bid was for a business collaboration. Feng Chen mentions finding a potential actress through an online casting video, revealing her to be Shen Nai, which astonishes Mrs. Huo. Mrs. Huo sees Shen Nai on the phone and is surprised that she hasn't given up on her dream of acting. Feng Chen praises Shen Nai's expressive eyes, saying they are perfect for the movie. Mrs. Huo is conflicted about supporting Shen Nai due to the harsh nature of the entertainment industry and her previous life's bad end. However, she decides to support her while ensuring she is protected. At the audition studio, Mrs. Huo reconnects warmly with Shen Nai and expresses concern for her safety in the industry. During the audition, Shen Nai impresses Feng Chen and Mrs. Huo with her natural talent and emotional depth, particularly in a challenging scene. Feng Chen decides to release the audition clip online to boost the movie's popularity. The clip garners positive reactions from viewers, praising Shen Nai's expressive power and beauty. Overall, the chapter showcases Mrs. Huo's internal conflict, Shen Nai's determination and talent, and the beginning of Shen Nai's journey in the entertainment industry, supported by positive public feedback. In the next scene, Ruan Haning, pretending to be similar to her famous sister Ruan Haning, meets Ji Yuju to secure his investment for her acting career. Ji Yuju, seeing potential in her, gives her his secondary card and instructs director Wang Jung to make her a star. Meanwhile, Ruan Haning reflects on her successful imitation and the support she received from Zhang Xiaoyong, though she harbors frustration with him. Later, Wang Jung brings a gift from Ji Yuju to Ruan Haning, who maintains her facade. The next day, Mrs. Huo learns from Ji Yuju that Ji Yuju has signed Ruan Haning to a major film project, seemingly to challenge Mrs. Huo. The news causes a stir online, with many praising Ruan Haning. The chapter ends with Wang Jung and Ruan Haning arriving at a studio now claimed by them, surprising Feng Chen and Mrs. Huo. Mrs. Huo and her team are confronted by Wang Jung, who announces that Ji Yuju has purchased the studio, demanding they leave. Tensions rise as Mrs. Huo challenges the eviction, prompting Ruan Haning to accuse Mrs. Huo of imitating her and stealing her life. Mrs. Huo reveals Ruan Haning's true background. Ruan Haning replied, "Who is imitating you? What do you mean?" Mrs. Huo replied, "Dress up like this, you do indeed look similar to me, but Ruan Haning, you have to understand that there are some things you cannot imitate no matter how you try." Ruan Haning replied, "I am just taking back what belongs to me. You are a robber taking away my happy marriage and my bright future, which should have been mine." "Mine." Mrs. Huo replied, "Your mother was a homewrecker turned official, destroying my family and usurping our property. In the beginning, it was that homewrecker of a mother of yours who wanted to prevent her daughter from marrying a useless person with no future, so she forced me to be married to Huo in your stead. So who's the robber here?" Ruan Haning noticed the camera and thought, "She is having someone record a video of this bitch," and said, "Ruan Haning, you are scheming this, right? Leading me to say those things disadvantaged to my name, then record it and post it online." Mrs. Huo replied, "You said everything yourself, and I am just collecting evidence. If you feel sick in the head, find a doctor. Don't go crazy here." Ruan Haning replied, "It is just a studio, it is not a big deal." I will let you win today, and as for tomorrow, I hope I won't see you here again. Mrs. Huo records the confrontation for evidence. Just as Ruan Wixi claims victory, Ji Yuju arrives with the purchase contract for the entire studio building, revealing that Mrs. Huo had preemptively bought it. This move shocks everyone, leaving Ruan Wixi frustrated and accusing the Huo group of bullying. Mrs. Huo asked her to leave peacefully. But then she had another plan. She went to give a call to Mr. Ji Yu for help. Ruan Wixi informs Ji Yu Zhao that the studio they rented has been bought by Ruan Haning and that all studios in the building are now owned by the Huo group, which she claims is disrespectful to Ji Yu Zhao. Ji Yu Zhao tells her to stop being manipulative and speak her mind. Ruan Wixi asks for more investment and offers to set up Ruan Haning for Ji Yu Zhao. Ji Yu Zhao agrees, promising triple the investment if she succeeds. Both Ruan Wixi and Ji Yu Zhao have malicious thoughts about Ruan Haning. At the Huo household, Mr. Huo surprises Mrs. Huo by buying all the studios for her. During dinner, Mrs. Huo receives a notification from Ruan Wixi inviting her to a film festival by Xingshu Entertainment. Despite Mr. Huo's offer to skip it, Mrs. Huo decides to attend, noting that the event will be live broadcast, which could expose Ruan Wixi. At the film festival, Mr. and Mrs. Huo makes a public appearance. Mr. Huo leaves to speak with Mr. Ji Yu, and Mrs. Huo is approached by Ruan Wixi, who pretends to be friendly. Mrs. Huo rebuffs her, referencing a past scolding. Ruan Wixi invites her for a drink, but Mrs. Huo declines and brings up Ruan Wixi's breakup with Zhang Xiaoyang, implying it's common gossip. Ruan Wixi is shocked that Mrs. Huo knows about it. Ji Yu Zhao compliments Mrs. Huo's sharpness and tries to intimidate her, but she slaps him for being inappropriate. Ruan Wixi signals a waiter, and Mrs. Huo, thinking about the arrogance of Ji Yu Zhao and Ruan Wixi, takes a drink from the waiter and starts feeling dizzy, suspecting foul play. Mrs. Huo started feeling dizzy and suspected there was something in her drink. She wanted to leave the area as quickly as possible. However, the waiter who had handed her the wine was acting suspiciously. The live stream was still on, and viewers noticed the waiter's odd behavior. Some thought it was strange, while others defended him, saying he was worried about her. Mrs. Huo wanted to return to her room quickly, but the waiter kept following her and handed her a key to room number 316, which wasn't her room. She opened the door but, before entering, cleverly changed the number on the door from 6 to 9 and went inside. The waiter didn't notice the change and informed someone that Mrs. Huo was in room 316. Inside, Mrs. Huo thought this was her chance to manipulate Mr. Huo. He was the finest man she had ever seen. She tried to approach him again, saying, "Do you want to know why my sister Mary didn't care that your legs aren't working? I'll tell you, Mr. Huo." But he wasn't interested in listening. He responded, "I don't want to hear anything about my wife from someone who is the product of an affair. You are just like your mother." As she tried to grab his attention, the glass of wine he was holding, which she had drugged, shattered. Irritated by her, he left the room. She then thought, so what if he didn't drink the wine? He must have inhaled the drug, now his head will feel heavy. Mr. Huo tried to return to his room, but the suspicious waiter again tried to direct him to another room. When he entered, he went inside the room he thought someone else
they
was
must
there.
have planned this to tarnish my
They had
reputation.
already planned this all to
Furious,
tarnish my reputation.
he approached
the bed, only
He
to
then
be
became
surprised to
furious.
find his wife
He thought
lying
he was
there.
not
gonna leave them when he
Meanwhile,
moved the blanket.
Mrs.
Huo's
He was
sister was in
surprised.
another room.
He saw his
feeling
wife lying
triumphant.
down there.
She thought she could
Meanwhile,
finally
Ruan
tarnish
Wixi was
Mrs.
in another room.
Huo's reputation
finally
and take
gonna
have her revenge. She
And
imagined
for
her first night with
it's
Mr.
gonna be with
Mr.
Mr.
Huo, who was a very handsome and refined man, and felt like she was on top of this world. Even without opening
turning
the light, she stripped her clothes and went straight into another man's arms without looking at his face or confirming his identity. Meanwhile, Mr. Huo, he is having a heart attack with his own temptation,
because he can't stop his
feeling
temptation
overwhelmed
of
by the
having
desire
his
to
wife
be
for
with
him.
his wife. But then she woke up and she started screaming, and she was about to hit him, and shouts, "Who is that?" Shouting, "Who is that?" Then suddenly she saw it was her husband. It was her husband. He understands what happened. She calmed down. She was understanding that they were both drunk and that someone might be trying to create a conflict between them, or whatever he didn't know. Relieved she was safe, he rushed assured that she was safe and passed out. She then felt dizzy and went into the bathroom. He then quickly went inside the shower, turned on the shower without removing his coat. Damn, he opened the shower and muttered, "Damn, I need to cool down my shower." He hurriedly took a shower and came called his assistant. He hurriedly picked up his phone to investigate the most recent purchase of drugs. He asks her to inquire about the most recent person beside his wife, but his heart started pounding again. Then he was about to go and sleep beside his wife, understand why he was acting this way. He ran back to the shower to cool down once more. A cool shower. He can't believe why he is acting like this. The next day, when she woke up, she noticed Mr. Huo sitting on a chair instead of lying on the bed. His dark circles were visible. She muttered, "It seems like you couldn't sleep," then giggled. He looked embarrassed but spoke up, "It seems like we were both drugged last night. Do you remember anything?" She thought for a moment and then said, "Oh yes, I drank something last night and then felt dizzy." "Same here, Mr. Huo responded. She muttered, "Ruan Haning," recalling that she was the only one with them last night. Mr. Huo agreed, but they both realized they didn't have enough evidence against her. They were unsure of what to do next. While they talked, she went into the bathroom and noticed it was wet. "Did you take a shower?" she asked. He tried to change the subject, but she could see how flustered he was, which she found endearing. She kissed him and went to take a shower. Meanwhile, in another room, Ruan Haning woke up, thinking her plan had finally worked. She was about to start acting out her part, preparing to confront Mr. Huo with, "How could you do this to me?" But when the man turned, they were both shocked to see each other. "Why are you here?" he asked. She started crying, insisting, "This must have been a mistake. I'm not a bad girl who would sleep with her investor." He was skeptical at first, but she continued crying, "I was still a virgin, and you are my first. Why would I sleep with anyone who isn't my lover?" Her pitiful tears made him reconsider, and he handed her a blanket, asking her to get dressed. They both left the room together. At the same time, the Huo couple was also leaving their room. They all met in the hallway. Ruan Haning tried to act like a friendly sister, but Mrs. Huo suddenly gave her a vitamin pill and said, "Don't act friendly." The Huo couple then left, leaving Ruan Haning behind. She turned to the man and asked, "Mr. Gu, will you take responsibility?" He agreed. A few days passed peacefully, with Ruan Haning making no trouble. Mrs. Huo was relieved, but her peace was disrupted when she stumbled upon an article falsely accusing Shen of dating a supposed gangster, Xiao Bai. The article also included a fake photo showing Shen bullying Ruan Haning, who appeared pitiful. The false rumors led to severe online backlash against Shen, with netizens calling her all sorts of names. Angered, Mrs. Huo realized Ruan Haning was behind the rumors and rushed to the studio, with Mr. Huo concerned for her. At the studio, Shen was apologizing to the director for the scandal. Mrs. Huo defended Shen, asserting that she was not at fault. Her attention then shifted to Wen Qing, a famous actress considered the queen of acting. The director explained that Wen Qing, who had been persuaded to make a cameo, was now considering dropping out due to the scandal. He noted that Wen Qing was straightforward and difficult to convince. Mrs. Huo approached Wen Qing, who expressed her displeasure with Shen, criticizing her reaction to the trolling and calling her unprofessional. Mrs. Huo acknowledged Shen's immaturity but emphasized her good character and talent, asking Wen Qing to reconsider. Convinced, Wen Qing decided to stay in the movie and posted a supportive message about Shen, praising her as a promising newcomer. This positive post quickly shifted public opinion, and the online harassment ceased. Mrs. Huo also made a statement, denying the false rumors and clarifying that Shen and Xiao Bai were not romantically involved but were like siblings. This further helped restore Shen's reputation. Everyone at the studio was relieved and happy. Later, a representative from the reality show, Into the Mountains, approached Mrs. Huo, inviting her and Mr. Huo to participate. Initially, she declined, but after some persuasion, she agreed to join the program, seeing it as an opportunity for something new. Mrs. Huo returned home to see if her husband had received an invitation for the reality show as well. Upon seeing the invite on his desk, he warned, "This must be a trap, we should be cautious." Mrs. Huo, however, saw an opportunity to expose their enemies, suggesting they act as bait to catch them. Her husband agreed. On the day of the show, they arrived at an old, rundown location slated for development. Suddenly, Ruan Wei's voice rang out, disparaging the place. She was accompanied by Mr. Gu, another participant. The couple spoke ill of the location and its residents, but Mrs. Huo warned them to stop. Another couple arrived, causing a stir, the famous actress Wen Qing and her husband. Mrs. Huo was pleased to see Wen Qing and asked why she joined the show. Wen Qing revealed that it was her husband who had been invited. Mrs. Huo noticed a bruise on Wen Qing's hand and suspected domestic violence. When she inquired, Wen Qing claimed she had fallen, but Mrs. Huo knew better. Their conversation was interrupted by Wen Qing's husband, who angrily called her names in front of everyone. Ruan Wei then questioned why there were only 3 couples when 4 were expected. Just then, Zhang Xiaoyang's girlfriend arrived, much to the dismay of both sisters. As Mrs. Huo departed, Mr. Zhang abruptly released his girlfriend's hand and dashed towards Mrs. Huo, displaying an unsettling familiarity. He reached out to grab her hand, but Mrs. Huo swiftly pulled away, setting a clear boundary. She made it clear that such behavior was inappropriate, especially towards a married woman. Witnessing this scene, Mr. Zhang's girlfriend looked worried and asked if he was okay. Mrs. Huo couldn't help but wonder why this woman had fallen for him, despite his disrespectful behavior. She questioned if the girl was blind to his faults. Just then, the host announced that the game was about to begin. He informed the participants that their luggage had already been sent to their accommodation, and they would receive only 20 yuan for dinner shopping. The revelation left everyone stunned. Ruan Wei seized the moment to put on an act of sympathy. She lamented the plight of those who had to survive on such a meager amount, with Mr. Gu chimed in to support her act. The netizens watching the live show were taken in by her performance, praising her compassion. Some even called her a true angel or a fairy for her supposed kindness. Meanwhile, Mrs. Huo was excited about the shopping challenge. She exclaimed, "It's been a long time since I last went to the market. When I was a child, I was an expert at grocery shopping and could buy ingredients for a whole meal with only 5 yuan." Her confidence impressed the netizens, and Mr. Huo jokingly declared his wife the winner of the show before the challenge even began. As the Huo couple prepared to leave for the market, Mr. Zhang suddenly ran up to them, offering his 20 yuan to Mrs. Huo, leaving his girlfriend, Li Min, behind. Seeing an opportunity, Ruan Wei approached Li Min with a faux concern. "Greetings to you, Min Min. Why is your man like this? Who leaves his girlfriend alone to follow another woman?" Li Min retorted, questioning why Ruan Wei was speaking ill of her own sister, Hangsing. Unfazed, Ruan Wei continued her disparaging remarks, insinuating that Hangsing had a habit of seducing men, even as a married woman. The netizens watching the drama unfold were divided in their opinions. Some accused Ruan Wei of backstabbing her sister, while others seemed swayed by her insinuations. Li Min, initially hesitant, was eventually persuaded by Ruan Wei's words. She started to believe that if Hangsing's own sister spoke this way about her, there must be some truth to it. A sense of revenge began to brew within her. At the market, the other couples were busy shopping for dinner. One of the husbands, an actor, began to berate his wife arrogantly. Hangsing, witnessing the scene, stepped in. She advised him that his manner of speaking was disrespectful and that he should be more considerate of his wife. The netizens were surprised by his harsh treatment of his wife and impressed by Hangsing's intervention. Though the husband reluctantly agreed to be more mindful, he curtly told Hangsing not to interfere in family matters. Hangsing stood her ground, explaining that his wife had once helped her, and she was merely returning the favor. After the actor left in an annoyance, Hangsing turned to his wife and said, "You have to resist. If you continue to endure like this, he'll only get worse. Stop being so patient, I can help you." Just then, Li Min saw an opportunity to enact her revenge. She interrupted the conversation, accusing Hangsing loudly, "Ruan Haning, why are you seducing other people's boyfriends behind your husband's back?" Hangsing, unfazed, retorted, "Which of your eyes has seen me around men?" Embarrassed but undeterred, Li Min continued her accusations, "You should stop seducing my man." Annoyed by the baseless accusations, Hangsing responded sharply, "You need to get your eyes checked." Li Min pressed on, accusing Hangsing of harassing her boyfriend. In response, Hangsing calmly took out her cell phone and presented evidence, showing that it was, in fact, Li Min's boyfriend who had been harassing her. Li Min stared at her phone, stunned by the flood of text messages. Hangsing remarked with a hint of sarcasm, "See who is chasing whom." Li Min, bewildered, asked, "So you didn't contact him first?" Hangsing couldn't help but think to herself that Li Min was being remarkably naive. In a misguided attempt to embarrass Hangsing, Li Min accidentally tumbled into the fish tank. At that moment, the camera crew and Mr. Huo reappeared. Hangsing, eager to shield Li Min's blunder from the live audience, quickly pretended that Li Min had simply lost her balance. She assisted Li Min out of the tank, which earned Hangsing admiration from the viewers. Someone remarked, "She is a girl's girl." To compensate for the damage caused by Li Min, Hangsing approached the fish vendor and asked to buy all his fish. The vendor, taken aback, quoted a total of 20 yuan. However, Hangsing only had 10 yuan because Mr. Huo had used the other 10 yuan for another ingredient. Without hesitation, an actress and Li Min each contributed 5 yuan to cover the cost. Seeing Hangsing's ability to garner support, Li Min, now convinced that Hangsing must have some sort of magical charm, decided to leave abruptly. As she walked away, the actress, touched by Hangsing's selflessness, wondered if Hangsing could help her as well. Meanwhile, Qian Weiqi, who was watching from a distance, thought Li Min had made a fool of herself and resolved to take matters into her own hands. Just then, the actress's husband stormed in, demanding that the actress keep her distance from Hangsing and labeling her as a troublemaker. The actress staunchly defended Hangsing, which only incited further anger from her husband. His outrage escalated as he yelled, "How dare a woman like you speak back to me?" Before he could say more, Hangsing stepped in, inviting the actress to join her in forming a group. As soon as Hangsing approached, the husband fled in a panic. Hangsing wondered what his next move would be. The announcers then signaled the beginning of dinner preparation, prompting everyone to start cooking. Xiao Yang, persistent as ever, began to pester Hangsing, who wished he would leave. Both Mr. Huo and Li Min seethed with frustration but restrained themselves due to the cameras. Hangsing decided to gather quality wood for the fire. Spotting her alone in the back, Qian Weiqi saw an opportunity and approached the actress's husband, plotting her next move. Qian Weiqi and the actress's husband, Ma Sinan, joined forces out of mutual disdain for Ruan Haning. Qian Weiqi vented her frustration, decrying Hangsing's perceived arrogance and insisting that men should make the final decisions. Ma Sinan agreed and retreated to the backyard, where Hangsing was gathering firewood, to smoke a cigarette. Hearing the faint crackle of the cigarette, Hangsing called out, warning him not to smoke near the firewood. Ma Sinan, with an air of arrogance, retorted that he could afford to burn the place down if he wished. He derisively suggested that women should confine themselves to domestic roles and not interfere with men's affairs. As he dropped his cigarette, he threatened to teach Hangsing a lesson. Hangsing, unperturbed, argued that his actions were putting everyone at risk and labeled him as a despicable person. Ma Sinan attempted to assert his dominance, but Hangsing swiftly kicked him in the groin and deftly defended herself when he tried to retaliate. She called him out for his jealousy and violence, refusing to back down. Ma Sinan boasted of his physical dominance over his wife, Wen Qing, to assert his role as the head of the household. Haning, seizing the opportunity, recorded their conversation on her phone, capturing his sexist and abusive remarks. When he noticed the recording, he threatened her angrily, but Haning remained unfazed, suspecting there might be a larger conspiracy against her. Returning to the filming location, Haning informed the crew that Ma Sinan had fainted and injured himself. The audience, puzzled by the lack of concern from the actress, began to criticize her. Haning then approached the actress, offering her the video evidence of her husband's abusive behavior. The actress, realizing the potential of this evidence to free her from Ma Sinan's oppressive control, felt a surge of hope. The video not only provided proof of Ma Sinan's abuse but also signaled a turning point in her struggle against his tyranny. The actress thanked Haning, who replied, "Let's make a great meal." Except for Haning, everyone else was poor at cooking. While the other three guys avoided touching the food, Mr. Huo shielded Haning from their dishes. The crew was busy capturing all the couple's reactions. The actress's husband was upset because he had to eat the unappetizing food, complaining about his injury and lack of proper food for recovery. Meanwhile, Qian Wei-si and her boyfriend wanted to drink wine, but the organizer offered them another brand. Qian Wei-si protested, "We clearly agreed with the director to use Dongcheng's specialty wine. Why is it changed to wine from Xicheng?" The switch was because Haning wanted to promote her new drink, so she paid the organizer a good amount. Mr. Huo was concerned about Haning, but she reassured him, saying, "Just a little wine, it's okay. I heard that only 300 liters of this wine can be brewed in a year. It's Xicheng's specialty, so I want to give it a try." The live audience commented, "Why does Huo Chen dote on her so much? My ship is otherworldly. There's truly a big difference between a real couple and a chemistry couple." Another person added, "Oh my gosh, I want a husband like that." Lin Min tasted the wine and remarked, "It tastes sweet, really not the same as wine I normally have, and it's suitable for girls." Her boyfriend added, "I must try this since it's a specialty." Meanwhile, the live audience was buzzing, "Really, I want to drink too. It's the first time I heard there's good wine in Xicheng. Bought it." Following Sister Haning to buy things is never wrong. "Never mind, I really want to drink it. I've had that before. Super delicious. There's lots of good and cheap food in Xicheng. You should all come there to try. Really, I've bought a plane ticket for tomorrow's flight." Qian Wei-si, bored, suggested doing something else. Her boyfriend proposed starting another game session. The host introduced the game. "Here, we have 7 cards from 1 to 7 and a joker. Whoever picks the joker can choose someone from the other's contact lists to call. If they successfully hold the conversation for 5 minutes, the program team will donate 500,000 yuan to Xicheng District." Qian Wei-si teased Haning, "You don't look even a bit worried. Aren't you afraid of calling someone inconvenient?" Haning replied, "Convenient or not, as long as it can help Xicheng, I'm willing to do it. Could it be that there's something in my little sister's mobile phone that you can't let anyone else see? Then you'll have to hide it carefully, otherwise, it might accidentally be found out." Qian Wei-si, feeling irritated, responded, "I don't have anything to hide, okay? I was only trying to joke with you. I didn't expect you to react so violently. If what I said made you feel unhappy, I apologize." Haning smiled and said, "I'm also just joking, you're thinking too much." "Well, if my words make you uncomfortable, I apologize as well." The live audience laughed. "I'm dying from laughing too hard. That she doesn't enter the entertainment industry is such a big loss." Another commented, "That acting skill is simply amazing, imitating Ruan Weisi's expression exactly the same." Ruan Weisi almost enrages to death, her face turns blue. "This is such a masterpiece. Can some Ruan's fans stop being so pretentious? Weisi only wants to exchange a few words. If you don't want to reply, then just let it be, there's no need to have such a fierce attitude. Really rude." Ruan Weisi knows clearly in her mind what she meant by those words. In her mind, "Do you think the watchers are fools?" The couples began playing the next game of cards. The actress and her husband, Ma Sinan, got matching cards. Following the game rules, Ma Sinan took her phone to call someone. He reassured his wife, "Don't be mad. When we're back in the evening, whether it's kneeling to wash or massaging your shoulders and back, I promise to listen to you." She thought, massaging your shoulders and back. I wouldn't dare to make Ma Sinan bow his head and do things like that. She replied, "It's okay, let's just start." He then made the call. The live audience was quick to guess who it was. "Oh shit, did I hear it correctly? That's the voice of Jin the actor king, right?" Ma Sinan calls the actor king. Woohoo, fans of Jin the actor king have arrived uninvited. It's been a long time since he has filmed. Program team, please deliver him my message. Stop staying at home picking your feet, go to work. I didn't expect that just by following a variety show, I would be able to see our idol who has been missing for a long time. Gosh, this program is cool. Never thought that Jin the actor king would be called. But that familiar tone, he must have known the actress queen, right? I laugh so hard, I can't see why the person above is so sour. The movie that when the actress queen won the award for was shot with him, so the two became very good friends. Is there someone who doesn't know about this? Ma Sinan said, "Jin the actor king, it's me. Wen Qing isn't here right now, I want to have a few words with you alone." Jin Chengxi, the actor king, replied, "It's you, we have nothing to talk about. Whatever it is, please ask Wen Qing to contact me. Well then, I'll hang up." Ma Sinan responded, "Jin the actor king is so indifferent to me like that, people might misunderstand that you're treating me as a love rival. I feel like some shocking drama is about to happen." The audience was shocked. Could it be that the rumor in which Jin the king and Wen the queen had feelings for each other after the previous movie, but when the actress queen was already married so they couldn't be together, is true? No way, this is outrageous. Xiao Qing thought, is Ma Sinan crazy? Or is he being ignorant to gain popularity? Has he ever thought about how I will face this friend of mine in the future if he talks to Jin Chengxi like this? Jin Chengxi replied, "Don't use your dirty mind to speculate on the relationship between Xiao Qing and me. If you just want to say such nonsense, excuse me for hanging up on you." Ma Sinan thought, Xiao Qing, calling her that affectionately, and who would believe that there's nothing between the two of you? He continued, "I just want to thank the actor king for taking care of Wen Qing before. If not for your recommendation, Wen Qing might not have been able to get her best heroine role. I just don't know whether the purpose behind the recommendation was pure or not. Actor king and actress queen, sounds like a perfect match, doesn't it?" Seeing his behavior, the live audience commented, "What is Ma Sinan talking about? Is he crazy? Holy shit. Is it true or not? So dramatic. I'm convinced, that's so outrageous." Actor Jin stated, "I'm just an ordinary actor. I can recommend actors to the director, but I don't have the authority to decide who will act. Xiao Qing got the role entirely on her own merits, not through my recommendation." Ma Sinan agreed but added that Jin's support was crucial. Jin, displeased, emphasized that Xiao Qing's success was due to her own hard work and talent, and as her husband, Ma Sinan should recognize and support her. He criticized Ma Sinan for not understanding Xiao Qing's efforts and reminded him of his responsibility to protect her. Ma Sinan, filled with jealousy and insecurity, thought that Jin might have feelings for his wife, Wen Qing, and accused her of seducing other men. This sparked shock and outrage among the live audience, who began commenting on Ma Sinan's inappropriate behavior. Ma Sinan then insinuated that Jin and Wen Qing had an affair, which angered Hangsing. She rebuked Ma Sinan, who retaliated with misogynistic remarks. Wen Qing tried to stop her husband, but he continued his tirade. Mr. Huo defended his wife, Hangsing, and she responded by physically confronting Ma Sinan, injuring him. Despite Wen Qing's pleas, Ma Sinan threatened to release a secret agreement if Hangsing didn't stop. He then punched Wen Qing during the livestream, revealing his abusive nature. The audience speculated that Ma Sinan was blackmailing Wen Qing. Hangsing threatened to leak a video of Ma Sinan committing domestic violence if he didn't stop. Ma Sinan countered by threatening to reveal Wen Qing's secret. Hangsing condemned Ma Sinan for using his wife's secret against her. Wen Qing, recalling years of exploitation and abuse by Ma Sinan, finally realized she had been treated as a mere plaything. She stood up and demanded a divorce from Ma Sinan. Ma Sinan yelled at his wife, demanding an apology. And don't even think about saying something ridiculous like wanting a divorce. He bellowed. Despite his demands, the crew continued recording, which infuriated him even more. The live audience murmured among themselves, criticizing him for wanting to stop the recording now when he had no qualms about humiliating his wife and even punching her earlier. Frustrated, Ma Sinan unplugged the recording equipment and screamed, "Wen Qing, don't force me. It's not too late for you to apologize to me now." Wen Qing, tears streaming down her face, mustered the courage to speak. "Ma Sinan, do you know why I chose you? There were many suitors, who had better backgrounds than yours." Ma Sinan, grabbing her forcefully, shouted, "Stop talking nonsense." Haning, noticing the escalating situation, tried to intervene, but Ma Sinan barked at her, "This is my family's matter. Do not interfere. Wen Qing, come home with me." Ignoring his demands, Wen Qing continued, "I chose you because, on that day, when I was leaving the filming team, a drunk man attacked me. You appeared and fought him off. I admired your fearlessness and passion for justice. But I never expected that the fists that once protected me would turn around and hit me." Ma Sinan retorted, "So what? You're my woman. You just have to listen to me and stop asking so many questions." Meanwhile, Haning received a message from her assistant. It read, "The specifics of what happened haven't been found, but on a banned pornographic trading website, a video was uploaded which is suspected of being when the actress Queen being raped by multiple people. The voices were processed, but it's likely Ma Sinan's voice. Attached was a video of Wen Qing." Seeing this, Haning couldn't control her emotions. As Ma Sinan was about to slap Wen Qing, Haning intervened. "Why hasn't the daily life of rich and handsome guys playing with girls been updated today?" she asked pointedly. "Playing dumb," Ma Sinan responded, "You. What are you talking about? I don't understand." Li Min then interjected, "That name sounds familiar. Where have I seen it?" Ma Sinan, now visibly startled, thought, "How did she find out? How does she know it's mine? That account was locked." Li Min continued, "This account posted a very popular video on a pornographic website. After the site was banned, only this account's IP address couldn't be located. My father was in charge of investigating this site. The woman in that video looked very similar to when the actress Queen, even though her face was blurred." The room fell silent. Wen Qing spoke up, "The woman in that video was wearing a dark blue nightgown, right?" Li Min confirmed, "Yes, if I remember correctly. That video had over 10 million views." Feeling utterly betrayed, Wen Qing confronted Ma Sinan, "You've been lying to me, right? My struggle was seen by millions of people." Ma Sinan tried to reason, "I didn't lie. I covered your face. Who would recognize you?" Haning then struck Ma Sinan, causing him to fall to his knees. She demanded he apologize, but he refused. "Why should I apologize? Women are just playthings for men. Even if you tell others, who would believe it? There's no evidence. Wen Qing, just apologize to me publicly, and everything will return to normal. Don't ever think about leaving me." Suddenly, a voice interrupted. It came from an ongoing call Ma Sinan had made to a famous actor, who revealed he had recorded everything. "Now I have evidence against you," the actor stated. Just then, the police arrived. "Who is Ma Sinan? We received a report about infringing on privacy and spreading obscene material." Haning handed Ma Sinan over to the police, ensuring justice was served. The police arrested Ma Sinan. Li Min approached actress Wen Qing to apologize, explaining that she had no idea the woman in the video was her. Wen Qing accepted Li Min's apology graciously. Li Min thought to herself how amazing Wen Qing was, noting her soft and delicate hands. Mr. Huo then went to his wife Haning and said, "Let's go home. It's been a long day, and you need rest." Haning agreed. Before leaving, she told Wen Qing that if she ever needed help, she could contact her. Witnessing all this, Li Min finally realized that her own relationship was one-sided. Blinded by love, she had ignored the proof that her boyfriend was trying to get with other girls. Summoning all her courage, she told her boyfriend she wanted to break up and punched him hard, leaving everyone shocked. Qian Weiqi thought to herself that she was lucky no one had discovered she was the one causing trouble on the set. The next day, the hot topic nationwide was actress Wen Qing and her husband. Wen Qing made a social media post detailing her husband's abuse and how she was a victim of domestic violence. She received immense support from her fans. A week later, at the Huo mansion, Haning thought about contacting Wen Qing for a nice outing. Mr. Huo came in and said, "I have good news for you. Xicheng District Development will soon have a contractor." Recently, Xicheng has been a hot topic on the internet, catching the eyes of several relevant institutions, and they want to hold a bid for Xicheng. Hearing this, Haning was happy. "I only helped a little. Madam worked so hard on this," he continued. "Then, my husband must be well prepared for this upcoming bidding session," she replied. "That's certain," he said, and they shared a sweet moment together, forgetting that all their siblings were there too. Meanwhile, at the Gu family residence, Mr. Gu said, "I don't want to eat now. The internet is supporting the development of Xicheng. How can I be in the mood to eat?" Qian Weiqi replied, "Don't worry. I have an idea. Gu Zhao, we can donate to the poor households in Dongcheng district." He asked, "There are no poor households in Dongcheng. Do you think it's the same as Xicheng?" She continued, "We can pretend there are." Ruan Haning's donation to Xicheng attracted a lot of positive attention. "We can follow suit. Even if there are no real poor households, the fact that the materials we donate are being delivered to recipients will create a good reputation for us." With such a good reputation, are you still worried that people won't support the development of Dongcheng district? "Good. Then you take care of it," he replied. "I knew I didn't misjudge you. Once I finish this job, you'll have to reward me well," she continued. He handed her a black card and said, "You can use the money on this card to buy necessary materials and use the remaining amount however you wish. It must be done before the bid." She gave him a reassuring smile. The next day, Haning visited Xicheng. "Have this month's supplies been delivered to the orphanage and the poor households in Xicheng?" she asked. The manager replied, "Yes, all delivered. The newly purchased clothes will also be delivered tomorrow. But why did you personally come to oversee the supplies for the orphans this time?" Haning responded, "There was a small problem last time, so I wanted to come and see for myself." The manager continued, "Mrs. Huo, don't worry too much. Just leave these things to us. Even if you work so hard, no one will notice." Haning insisted, "We still need to be more vigilant. Stop buying supplies from the previous store. The quality was too poor and couldn't be used, especially the food. There were a lot of expired items mixed in with the batch to sell." Just then, the voice of a man shouting was heard, "Miss Quan, Weiqi said the car can go now." Another man replied, "There's no other way. I'm just following orders from the higher-ups." The first man retorted, "These things that Quan bought are of the worst quality. Will anyone want them even if they are given away?" Hearing this, Haning realized what was happening. She turned to the manager, "Isn't that the supply store you just mentioned? These are such poor quality products." Haning then approached the man who was shouting and asked, "Hello, may I ask if this truckload of supplies is for donation?" He replied, "That's right. What's the matter?" Haning continued, "I've purchased products from this place before, but the quality was very poor, no standards at all. It's easy to cause problems with such products being donated." The man snapped back, "This has nothing to do with you, okay? Stay away, we're leaving." Haning insisted, "You should think about the people who'll use it. If something goes wrong, you'll be responsible." The man shouted angrily, "It's good enough that those poor people have something to live on. They shouldn't be picky. Where did this woman come from, anyway?" A crowd began to gather, and one person whispered, "Isn't that Qian Haning?" Another person commented, "What are they talking about? I can't hear them clearly, but it looks like they only allow their own supplies to be donated, and others can't participate." A woman added, "They probably just want to keep all the benefits for themselves." Seeing this, Hangsing knew she needed to clarify the situation. She took her keys from her purse and tore open a rice bag to show everyone the poor quality of the supplies. She then addressed the crowd. The supplies they donate are all of poor quality, they don't even meet safety standards. If you give these to people, it'll be a big problem. The man who was shouting earlier retorted, "What nonsense are you talking about? Who said there's something wrong with our supplies?" Hangsing challenged him, "If you were given this rice, would you eat it?" The man sneered, "It's just a little dirty. All rice needs to be washed before cooking. Are you jealous that someone else is better than you? Crazy woman, let's go." As the truck driver sped away, Hangsing asked the manager to check who owned the truck. Meanwhile, Qian Wei-si posted a picture of the same truck on her social media, stating, "My dearies, I'm going to hold a donation drive for the economically disadvantaged areas of Dongcheng District next week. I've prepared rice, noodles, oil, daily necessities, and some winter clothes. I hope everyone can welcome the upcoming winter warmly." However, someone commented on her post about a viral video of a truck that looked exactly like her donation truck. In the video, Hangsing was also visible. Realizing the potential damage to her reputation, Qian Wei-si quickly commented, "I heard that my sister had a quarrel with my assistant today, saying that my supplies were inferior. I think she just got carried away for a moment and didn't mean anything by it. I hope everyone will not verbally attack my sister." This sparked a range of responses. Some accused Hangsing of bullying Qian Wei-si, while others suggested that Qian Wei-si was mimicking Hangsing's every move. Some people remained neutral. Back at the Huo house, everyone was upset because of Qian Wei-si's false allegations. But Hangsing reassured them, saying she would handle everything and asked them to trust her. Meanwhile, Qian Wei-si continued with her donation activities. As the donations began, the manager called out to the crowd, "These are your portions here. You can come to pick them up. We have rice and winter clothes as well, they're all available." "Thank you, thank you," the crowd responded gratefully. While overseeing the donations, Qian Wei-si addressed the crowd, "Everyone, please form a line. There's no need to push, everyone will get their share." But inwardly, she thought, these poor people really scramble for any free food they see. Suddenly, a van pulled up, and Hangsing stepped out. Surprised, Qian Wei-si asked, "What are you doing here?" Hangsing replied, "I'm just concerned something might go wrong with the supplies." Qian Wei-si, feeling defensive, retorted, "What do you mean? Are you saying there's something wrong with this food?" At that moment, a person in the crowd started vomiting and collapsed. Fortunately, Hangsing had brought medical staff for emergencies. One of the doctors quickly rushed to help the person. Seeing this, the rest of the crowd began checking their lunchboxes and discovered that the food was spoiled. Panicking, Qian Wei-si asked her manager what was happening. The manager admitted, "I followed your instructions and purchased cheap food." The crowd, now angry, began shouting at Qian Wei-si, "You call this a donation? How hypocritical!" Furious and embarrassed, Qian Wei-si snapped back at them, "It's good enough that we're donating to you. You don't have the right to be picky about what you receive. You have both hands and feet, how hard is it to make money? Have you ever worked hard or put effort into anything? You shamelessly eat other people's food, and now you're making demands." Hangsing intervened, "Stay back. So many people have eaten the food. What if something goes wrong? We need to find out if these lunchboxes were spoiled due to the heat or if there's something wrong with the food itself. We'll find out after sending the samples for inspection." Realizing that Hangsing was planning to have the lunchboxes inspected, Qian Wei-si panicked. She ordered her manager to drive the truck and smash the lunchbox Hangsing was carrying. The manager hesitated, but Qian Wei-si threatened to fire him if he didn't comply. She even promised him 2 million yuan if he completed the task. Reluctantly, the manager agreed and drove the truck towards Hangsing. But Hangsing, being athletic, dodged the attack just in time. Enraged, Hangsing yelled at Qian Wei-si, "Are you insane? There are so many people here, and you dare to have someone drive a truck at me?" Qian Wei-si, desperate to deny her actions, shouted back, "I don't know what you're talking about. Don't slander me. Did you see with your own eyes that I did something like that? I've always been inferior to you in every aspect. You squeeze me and suppress me all the time, and that beautiful life of yours is supposed to belong to me. Now you want to destroy the life I have left, Ruan Haning. Just what are you planning to do? Haning confronted Qian Weisi, her voice sharp. I'll say this one last time. It's you who pushes the limits time and again, and it's also you who destroy everything in my life. Qian Weisi, all the things you've done to me before I could let them pass. But today, you let the car plow into the crowd just to destroy evidence. There will be retribution, and I'll be the one to deliver it with my own hands. Qian Weisi spat back. Quan Haning, you bitch. I'll get you for this. Where's my assistant? Help me up, now. At the Huo residence, the youngest sibling spoke up. It's almost the Mid-Autumn Festival. We should go buy some autumn clothes soon. The middle brother nodded. Sure, but sister-in-law, how long will it take to get the test results for those lunchboxes? I can't stand the disgusting comments from these awful people online anymore. They can't tell right from wrong. Mr. Huo, worried about Haning, advised her not to get into trouble. Suddenly, the middle brother shouted, "Look, sister-in-law. Ruan Weisi is being scandalized." The news broke. Ruan Weisi donated low-quality clothes and rice mixed with sand and bugs, causing many people to suffer from skin allergies, gastrointestinal inflammation, and other symptoms. It's reported that the store where Ruan Weisi purchased supplies failed to meet quality inspection standards. One netizen commented, "It's so disgusting. Check out the jackets, Mrs. Ruan gave it to the children at the orphanage. They cost 200 yuan each. Thick and warm." Another hot comment read, "How does she deserve to be called the little fairy? She looks glamorous but does such shameful things." Yet another person wrote, "It's obviously a staged photo shoot to fool people. Did they think we're fools? I'm no longer a fan of Ruan Weisi." Haning muttered to herself, "It's time to add fuel to the fire. Ruan Weisi should take responsibility for the harm she's done." She then called someone and said, "Publish the inspection report online." The siblings couldn't understand why Qian Weisi was doing all of this when she already had everything. Haning thought, "But I have to be careful to prevent Ruan Weisi from acting recklessly when cornered. I won't go easy on her this time." Online, Ruan Weisi's reputation completely collapsed. All the materials she had donated were exposed as fake, low-quality products that caused problems for countless people. Rumors spread that Ruan Weisi's mother was a mistress who got lucky, and that Ruan Weisi herself had even tried to drug her own sister. People questioned whether someone like her deserved to be a star. Meanwhile, Qian Weisi was overwhelmed by the hate and criticism pouring in online. She blamed Haning for everything. Mr. Yu then arrived to confront Qian Weisi, furious. "Is this the good thing you did? Ruan Weisi, you took so much money from me, and this is how you repay me. Is there any truth in your words? Listen to me, let me explain. I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't think anyone would find out." Qian Weisi pleaded. He shoved her and shouted, "Ruan Weisi, see for yourself what this is. You even faked your first time with me, can anything you say be trusted?" Seeing the document, she tried to deny it. "It's not what you think. This document must be fake. I didn't do it. Ji Zhao, don't you usually like touching my face? I was just impulsive, just this once. Can you forgive me?" He coldly removed his hand from her face and retorted, "Ruan Weisi, what are you going to do to handle the aftermath? All your money came from me. Can you make up for the economic losses caused by the stock's decline, or the damage to the Su family's reputation?" He pushed her away and declared, "I was blinded by your appearance. You only have a face that resembles Ruan Haning, but nothing else about you can compare to her. You have one day to move out. I don't want to see you when I return tomorrow." Crying on the floor, she muttered, "Ruan Haning, it's all your fault. Your fault. Quan Haning, just you wait. Since you've destroyed me, I'll destroy you too." The next day, Haning gathered everyone in the house and said, Ruan is now being heavily criticized and boycotted by everyone. She might do something outrageous. Mr. Huo and I will be fine, but the three of you need to be extra careful. Don't go anywhere alone or in small groups. I need to go to the company to sort out some documents that have been in use recently. Stay safe and be good at home. All the siblings agreed. In the afternoon, the elder sister thought to herself, the weather is nice today. Let's take little Lan out to enjoy the sun. She thought it would be a good idea to take the orc she went to see. She noticed it was dying. She muttered, why does little Lan look so gloomy? There's even a wormhole. What should I do? It seems to be getting worse and worse. My sister-in-law said it's not safe these days, but the orchid. She then remembered that day. This orchid is the bridge between the Su family and the Han family. My sister-in-law put so much effort into saving this orchid. Determined, she thought, I can't let anything happen to little Lan, and I can't let my sister-in-law's hard work go in vain. It's time to take charge of my own responsibilities. I can't rely on my sister-in-law for everything. I heard there's someone in Shicheng district who is knowledgeable about taking care of orchids. Meanwhile, outside the house, Qian Weisi was waiting for a member of the Huo family to be alone. When she finally saw someone, she muttered, finally, someone walks out alone. Quan Hengxing, I'll make you regret this for the rest of your life. Scene shifts to the office. Hengxing received a call. Hello, who is this? The caller spoke in a disguised voice. Come to the abandoned factory in the suburbs outside the city at 8 o'clock tonight. Hengxing thought, they're using a voice changer. Suddenly, Qian Weisi grabbed the elder sister and shouted at her, tell your sister-in-law to come here alone. Terrified, the elder sister stammered, sister-in-law, help me. Hengxing demanded, who are you? Whatever this is, target me. Let Quan Qian go. Qian Weisi's voice was filled with malice. Hengxing, I don't want anything else. Tonight at 8 o'clock go alone to the abandoned factory in the suburbs, or I'll kill Huo Quan Qian. The call was abruptly cut off. Hengxing thought, who could it be? Is it Qian Weisi? You are insane woman. She quickly called her assistant. Assistant Han, report to the police immediately. Tell them someone is being held hostage in a suburban factory. Inform Mr. Huo as well. Yes, ma'am, the assistant replied. Hengxing continued, we need to call the police as soon as possible. If there are many people involved, we'll need their support. Meanwhile, at the abandoned factory, Qian Weisi shouted at the elder sister, it's already 7:55, and your sister-in-law isn't here yet. Looks like your sister-in-law is afraid of dying, no one's coming to save you. Huo Quan thought, what a crazy woman. I have to protect little Lan. Qian Weisi, now furious, hit the elder sister and screamed, damn you. It's just a trampled flower, and you're trying to protect it. What's there to protect? Protect that flower, huh? All because your entire family is against me, and your big brother married Ruan Haning. Quan thought, if my sister-in-law were in this situation, she'd handle it calmly. I have to find a way to save myself. There's a piece of iron here -1, wonder if it can cut through Qian Weisi's grip. Summoning her courage, the elder sister suddenly attacked Qian Weisi, injuring her. Meanwhile, Hengxing, riding on a motorbike, arrived just in time to rescue Huo Quan. When Hengxing arrived, Qian Weisi's followers began attacking her, but Hengxing skillfully defeated them all. Qian Weisi was furious and shouted, Ruan Hengxing, what right do you have to criticize me? It's only because you married Huo Chen that you act so arrogantly. Without the Huo family, you're nothing. Quan responded, my sister-in-law is successful because of her own talents. Anyone who marries into the Huo family wouldn't achieve what she has. When my brother was injured and we were facing difficulties, the Huo family was not in a good position. The Huo family's success is due to my sister-in-law's hard work. How dare you belittle her achievements just because of her family name? Enraged, Qian Weisi struck Quan and yelled, who allowed you to speak? As Hengxing continued to defeat the henchmen, Qian Weisi, in desperation, shouted, Ruan Hengxing, it's all your fault. Everything is your fault for ruining my life. If you don't stop, I'll harm Huo Quan. Hangsing replied, don't involve others in our conflict. If you have an issue, it's with me. Quan then said, do you want to spend your life in prison? Don't you want to love, marry, and have a family? Is it worth throwing your future away over a moment of anger? Qian Weisi shouted, what do you know? You don't understand anything. How can you people who have everything understand my struggles? Hangsing provoked her. Qian Weisi, you're just a failure hiding from the truth. You'll never surpass me. If you're so brave, why don't you face me directly? Qian Weisi yelled, be quiet, Ruan Haning. Hangsing threw a bat at Qian Weisi, causing her to fall. Qian Weisi grabbed a knife and thought, without the Huo family, you'd be nothing. What right do you have to look down on me? Seeing this, Quan thought, my sister-in-law has always protected me. I must protect her this time. Qian Weisi lunged at both of them, knife in hand, but Hangsing narrowly dodged the attack. Just as the tension reached its peak, the piercing sound of sirens filled the air, signaling the arrival of the police. Qian Weisi, surrender yourself. The police commanded. Qian Weisi sneered, her eyes filled with malice. Hangsing, you're so pathetic. I knew you'd call the police. You're nothing but a coward. But before she could say more, Hangsing had finally had enough. With a surge of adrenaline, she tackled Qian Weisi to the ground, her frustration boiling over. Qian Weisi, you've pushed me too far. Hangsing shouted, her voice trembling with emotion. You've plotted against me, hurt the people I care about, over and over again. Qian Weisi laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the empty factory. From beginning to end, you've always been so calm and composed, like nothing could ever faze you. It makes me sick. But now that we're here together, let's burn in hell together. With those words, she flicked open a lighter, and the factory, already drenched in gasoline, erupted into flames. Outside, Mr. Huo's heart raced as he watched the inferno consume the building. Panic gripped him, and without thinking, he tried to run inside to save his wife and sister. Mr. Huo, please calm down. A police officer shouted, holding him back. We don't know what's happening inside, and the fire is raging. The fire department is on their way. My sister, my wife, they're in there, Mr. Huo shouted in desperation, struggling against the officers restraining him. How can I calm down? Just when all seemed lost, the factory doors burst open, and through the flames emerged Hangsing, riding a motorcycle with Quan behind her. She maneuvered through the blazing inferno with the determination of a warrior, her face streaked with soot but her resolve unbroken. As they reached safety, medical staff rushed to their aid. Hangsing, her voice choked with emotion, apologized to her husband. I'm so sorry about Qian Weisi. But Mr. Huo, relieved beyond words, pulled her into a tight embrace. It's not your fault, he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. As her brother, and your husband, I failed in my duty to protect you both. I almost lost you. The police chief approached them, concern etched on his face. Mrs. Ruan, what's the situation inside? Hangsing, catching her breath, replied, there are only Qian Weisi and a few thugs inside. But they're still human lives. Please, hurry, help them. Suddenly, a deafening explosion tore through the factory, and the building was engulfed in a massive fireball, sending everyone outside scrambling for cover. The scene shifts to the police station. The atmosphere is tense as the police chief addresses Mrs. Ruan. Mrs. Ruan, the results of our investigation are in. The explosion at the abandoned factory wasn't a random incident. After a thorough examination, we discovered that liquefied gas tanks had been strategically placed in every corner of the factory, which led to the devastating explosion. Unfortunately, there were no survivors. Our investigation of the tank fragments revealed that they originated from a liquefaction plant owned by a company linked to Ji Yuzhao. Hangsing's thoughts raced. What? Could this have been a trap set by Ji Yuzhao? Was he trying to kill Ruan Weisi and then cover his tracks? The police summoned Mr. Ji Yu for interrogation. When he arrived, his impatience was evident. Why did you call me here? He demanded. The police chief responded calmly, Mr. Ji Yu, you're suspected of collaborating with Ruan Haning to kidnap and harm others. We need you to confirm some information. Ji Yu Zhao's mind raced. Kidnap and murder. Ruan Haning is no longer my girlfriend. She has nothing to do with me. Enraged, he shouted, "You fuckers, be gentle. I told you this has nothing to do with me." His thoughts darkened. Why are they suddenly investigating me? Did they find out about the liquefied gas tanks? Quan Haning, even in death, you won't let me have peace. Ji Yu Zhao's frustration boiled over. I've already told you, all of Quan Haning's actions have nothing to do with me. The officer remained composed. It's not just about Quan Haning, Mr. Ji Yu, you're suspected of premeditated murder. Ji Yu Zhao sneered. You're cops. Shouldn't your accusations be based on evidence? What evidence do you have that I committed murder? At that moment, the door to the interrogation room swung open. Haning stepped inside, her expression resolute. Don't you want evidence? She said, holding up a photograph. Here it is. This photo shows you near the factory, entering it, and then transferring a batch of liquefied gas tanks away. Ji Yu Zhao's face twisted in anger. That woman, Quan Haning, deceived me. She played with me and stole my money. I simply gave her the punishment she deserved. Haning's voice was firm. I don't care what happened between you and Ruan Haning. Even if she deserved punishment, that was for the law to decide, not you. Ji Yu Zhao's tone shifted to one of desperation. The Ji Yu family and the Huo family still have a cooperative relationship. Aren't you afraid that if you send me to prison, the Ji Yu family will cut ties with you? Haning remained unfazed. You've committed a crime, and you should face the consequences. Besides, I trust that Senior Ji Yu can distinguish right from wrong. If he chooses to condone your actions, then perhaps the Huo family should reconsider its relationship with the Ji Yu family. Meanwhile, in the hospital, Quan Haning lay in a bed, recovering. Her family gathered around her, their faces lined with worry. Despite the circumstances, there was a moment of shared joy as they reunited. Haning made a quiet vow to take better care of her siblings, but her husband, Mr. Huo, gently interrupted. It should be me who takes care of all of you. They all spent a precious, leisurely time together, savoring the calm after the storm. A week later, at the Huo residence, Haning was busy preparing for a special event when her husband approached. What are you up to? Mr. Huo asked, curious. She turned to him with a smile. Quan will be discharged from the hospital today. I'm preparing a welcome ceremony for her. A welcome ceremony, he echoed, surprised. A sense of ritual is the best way to express inner emotions, she explained. I think everyone will appreciate it. No more talking, I have to hurry and finish preparations. I'll be back soon. As she bustled about, Mr. Huo's thoughts drifted. It seems like I've never given my wife the attention she deserves. She's sacrificed so much, and yet we haven't even had a proper wedding ceremony or exchanged rings. Huo Chen, what are you doing? You keep saying you love her, but you've done nothing to show it. The party went off without a hitch, but Mr. Huo's mind was elsewhere. The entire day, a sense of unease weighed on him. Quan noticed his mood. What's wrong with Big Brother today? He doesn't seem happy, she remarked. Another sibling replied, doesn't he always have that look? After the meal, Mr. Huo called his siblings together, but they assumed he was going to scold them and tried to slip away. However, when they sat down with him, his expression was serious. I've been thinking, he began, I want to properly propose to my wife again, this time the right way. The next day, Mr. Huo began meticulously preparing a surprise for Haning. She noticed his behavior becoming more peculiar as the days passed. He's acting strange, Haning thought, but she brushed it off and focused on her work. 2 days later, Mr. Huo asked Haning to dress up for an event. She couldn't help but notice that he was wearing formal attire, but with an added touch of elegance and sophistication. With a playful grin, she teased, if someone sees you dressed like this, they might think you're going to attend a wedding. She then asked, where are the children? Mr. Huo casually replied, they've gone to do some volunteer work. But in truth, the children were busy with the final preparations for the surprise wedding event. At the venue, Haning's close friends, Shenai and Wen, the actress queen, were also there to assist Mr. Huo with his proposal. When Hangsing and Mr. Huo arrived, he led her to a secluded spot, saying, "I want to take you to this place first. It's the first ancient-style garden built in Xicheng district." Hearing this, Hangsing was intrigued and pleasantly surprised. As they entered the garden, Hangsing was astonished to see all of her closest friends and family gathered there. She immediately spotted Shenai and Wen, and couldn't help but ask, "Shenai, Wen, why are you two here?" With warm smiles, they replied, "We're here to prepare a little surprise for Sister Hangsing, of course." Hangsing was puzzled, her mind racing to understand what was happening. Then, out of the blue, her grandmother appeared, walking towards her with a beaming smile. Hangsing's eyes widened in shock and joy. Before she could fully process everything, Mr. Huo stepped forward, holding a beautiful bouquet of flowers. His eyes were filled with emotion as he began to speak. "I've always felt that I owed you a proper proposal," he started. "Last night, I spent hours thinking about how to express my feelings for you. I wrote and rewrote my words, but nothing seemed right. I wanted to describe you as an angel, who came into my life when I was in despair and brought light to my world. But standing here now, I realize that what I really want to say is simple: thank you. Thank you for coming into my life and showing me what true happiness is." As he spoke, he slowly knelt down on one knee, holding out a ring. This time, there are no constraints of a marriage contract, no more business interests or benefits. "Hangsing, will you marry me again, this time as my wife in every sense of the word?" Tears welled up in Hangsing's eyes as she nodded, a radiant smile spreading across her face. "Yes," she whispered, "I will." Mr. Huo slipped the ring onto her finger, and the crowd erupted in applause. The air was filled with joy as everyone celebrated the couple's renewed commitment to each other. Laughter and smiles abounded as they gathered together for photos, capturing the beautiful moment of love and unity. "Thank you for your support all this time, for witnessing Mr. Huo comes out of the deep, and for taking a glimpse of Han Xing's warm heart underneath her cool, sassy character. The troubles are over, there will only be happy ever after from now on. I wish you all the best and look forward to meeting you in other future works of mine. So please don't forget to press the bell icon for the latest updates notification."